Welcome back to the Name Redacted podcast, America's most beloved podcast, the most downloaded Red Sox podcast in the world. And you know what, Tyler? I feel like we had a discussion before. I think it was like that first Braves series where they split, but then Kenley got the 400 save. We were feeling really good about the Red Sox. We had a little powwow before the podcast, and we were like, this is going to be the most listened to episode of the season, no doubt. I feel like that's no longer going to be true. I feel like a lot of people are going to be listening to this particular episode because of the news today.
Of course, we're at a moment where you can say, in terms of Red Sox history, recent history, one of these monumental shifts, whether you want to talk about when Dombrowski got hired, when Cherington came along, when all these different things, when Theo left, like we're in one of those moments right now. And I think a lot of people are in that, zone between shocked. Some people are celebrating, thinking it's the greatest day ever. I've seen a lot of people on Twitter who are heartbroken. The Bluminati's having a hard day in their own little side of things. We're all sitting here and we're wondering what's next because we're going into
divided.
We're going into an offseason where it's going to lay the line for everything Chaim Bloom has done the last couple of years and what this core of Red Sox players, the Casas, the Bayos, Devers contract, what is it going to look like this generation of Red Sox baseball?
All right, let's lay it all out. In case you're living under a rock, Chaim Bloom, the chief baseball officer, was fired by the Boston Red Sox today. We have a lot to talk about. This is a very layered discussion. If you're tuning in to break down the Red Sox-Yankees battle of the mid-series, we'll have you know that the series, they're still playing baseball right now. As we're recording this, we don't give a fuck. Don't give a fuck. So I don't know that we're going to talk a ton about the actual series. This is basically going to be Chaim Bloom reaction. And because there's so much to get to, let me hit an ad read real quick, and then we'll do a really heavy segment. Football is back in full swing with another week of epic games, and who's got you covered on the action for every single one of them? DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. New customers can bet $5 on football and get $200 instantly in bonus bets. Nobody's missing out on the action this season. All DraftKings customers can take advantage of 2 new offers every game this September. Get in on the NFL Week 2 action with DraftKings Sportsbook. Download the app right now. Use the promo code Jared to sign up. New customers can bet just $5 and take home $200 instantly in bonus bets only on the DraftKings Sportsbook with the promo code Jared. The crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY to 467-369. In West Virginia, visit www.1800gambler.net. In partnership with Hollywood Casino at Charlestown Races. All games regulated by the West Virginia Lottery. Please play responsibly. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort. 21 plus in most eligible states, but age varies by jurisdiction. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details and state-specific responsible gambling resources. Bonus bets expire 7 days after issuance. Eligibility and deposit restrictions apply. Terms at sportsbook.draftkings.com/football terms.
Okay. Let's get into it. We were recording Baseball is Dead this morning, and I get texts from people this morning. And I usually don't. It's not that I don't believe who is reaching out. It's not that. It's more just like, you see something and maybe you get a little bit excited about it. Like, oh, like, is this something? Like, could this be something? Like, it kind of felt like that. The first text felt like that. The first one. The second one was a little bit more forward. Like, the second text was straight up, he's getting fired. So it was, I'm trying to pull them up right now. I sent them to you, Tyler.
Yeah, you did. And just for context, this was after you kind of went through this and everything. Scoop Shop was dead silent. Because you were doing Baseball is Dead. So I was at work. People probably, who listened to Zolak and Bertrand saw me react live. I had no idea. I saw it for the first time, fresh out besides our conversations on this pod on the Twitter feed.
Yeah, this was between like 11:30 this morning and about 1:15 noon. Like one was as blatant as Chaim is about to get fired today.
Cooked.
And then both kind of just hammered home the point that like Sam Kennedy's here, John Henry's here, Tom Warner's here. The demeanor, it doesn't, it felt reminiscent of when Dombrowski got the axe. So both people that reached out, both felt pretty strongly that that's what this was about. It was Chaim and it wasn't good and he was going to get fired. The I don't know, a few weeks ago, we had talked about the people that I had spoken to, because all along, I'm just going to repeat stuff. If you watch the State of the Nation video that I put out, I'm sorry, I'm going to repeat some stuff just because I can't assume that all the podcast listeners are also on social media. I know that there are some older folks that don't do the Twitters and the Instagrams and the TikToks. They just listen to the podcast. So I'm going to repeat.
Let's be real. So much was going on the Twitter feed. I bet a lot of people just didn't see it because everyone was friggin' running around with their head on fire.
Right. So I kind of get tipped off about this 11:30, then quarter past noon. And then we were just doing Baseball is Dead. And I kind of like dropped like, hey, I think something's going on at Fenway today. Like I didn't say what I knew. Like I didn't say Chaim's getting fired, but I was like, yeah, I think something's going down today. And then within 30 seconds, Jake, like Castillo broke the news that Chaim had been fired.
Yeah, it was like right away.
It was like the next breath that I could take is like the news came out. But sorry if I jump around because there's just so much information to kind of sift through here to get the full scope of the story. But a few episodes ago, I had mentioned that, you know, talking to some people, and I thought that Chaim was going to get the offseason. I thought that, and the way that I phrased it was, this offseason was entering the next phase, right? Like Chaim gets hired. You have to trade Mookie Betts. That's step one. You have to, and Passan said this almost perfectly, where you had to rebuild the farm system. You had to stay under the luxury tax, and you had to win all at the same time, which is very hard to do. And he said it's borderline impossible.
And you add in the fact it was not only that, and Sam Kennedy, I'll give him his credit on this. He emphasized it heavily. Chaim Bloom like rebuilt a lot of the organization in terms of R&D. Like when it was like in terms of pitching structure, just getting the organization to a point where they were caught up. There was the article in the Globe during spring training you can go back to where it talks about all the different guys Chaim Bloom kind of brought in for them to just catch up to where other teams were. They had fallen significantly behind, you know, in that 2018, 2019 era where it was David Dombrowski, like Tony La Russa to his right side, and how they were going about it. They had fallen back. And I'm not trying to say that to you to discredit David Dombrowski. I know a lot of people are getting sensitive over a lot of that stuff. That was just the reality of the organization. But you look at the infrastructure, Bloom had to remodel a lot of this to get the organization to where it is. Now, does that immediately fix what was going on at the big league level? No, there were plenty of mistakes there, and we'll get into them today. But it goes beyond just that win-loss and beyond some of just the luxury tax stuff and all that factoring in. He was kind of bringing this organization to a point where they could at least be respected in terms of the process and how they were going about things, that they could be like the Braves and the Dodgers, and they weren't kind of falling behind and being an organization dating back to Theo that was always forward thinking. They were no longer that way. They were now considered one of the older thinking front offices.
Right. So I think today, because it happened so early in the day, I've done a lot of thinking on it and weighing the pros and cons and what I know and what's out there and comparing different notes and kind of balking at saying that Chaim got a raw deal. Like, I don't want to say that he got a raw deal, and we'll get to why. And part of that reason was in the State of the Nation video. We'll get there. But people were talking about the timing of it. Like, why would you wait? If you've made the determination that Chaim is not the guy moving forward, what are you waiting for? Like, I don't understand why you would wait until November. Like, you're already behind. The second that the World Series is over, teams are making their moves. Like, I don't understand the whole, like, let's wait. Like, no. Because as you just saw with the New York Mets hiring David Stearns, this isn't like signing a free agent player. It's not like you have to wait till the World Series is over and then you can start signing guys and trading guys. Like, it's not like that. If you want a different executive, you can hire that person tomorrow. You could have hired them today. So that's why you need to, like, I don't give a fuck about, like, oh, you should have, like, why do it now? Like, why? Because, like, that's exactly why. Like, you want to, if the Red Sox are going to stand up there, Sam Kennedy in particular, and you're going to tell the fans, hey, what happened the last 4 years is unacceptable. We need to get back to winning championships. You would already be sending a mixed message by waiting until the end of the season to fire Chaim. Because you can, if the Mets are out there hiring their guy, okay, like, make the determination that, because make no mistake about it, David Stearns getting hired on Tuesday, and then this happens on fucking Thursday, it's because it's like, hey, we were eyeing this guy. We're not going to get him, but we know now that we don't want Chaim. We want somebody else. So now you don't have to leave it up to the Heymans and the Nightingales to report that you're looking for other people. Meanwhile, Chaim is sitting there. Like we talked about this before we just came on about how Cora and Bloom just yesterday were talking about their plans for the future. If you've got people walking around the front office and ownership that know you're going to fire this guy and you're just going to like let him walk around and have conversations about the future with the manager, like that's awkward. Like why make him sit there and think that he's going to be the guy making these decisions in the offseason if you know that he's not? Like, so the timing to me, I don't understand the complaints about it.
No, if anything, I'm in the kind of place where I wish it happened earlier, right? Like if you got past the trade deadline and that was something where, we're hearing these conversations about Bloom being indecisive. Jared, a lot of people were laughing at you when you were bringing this Bloom stuff to the table. At the trade deadline, you mentioned that ownership wasn't happy with how things played out. There was some level of just
Tyler, a lot of the things that I fucking said about this ended up being true, which is crazy.
You're right.
Not one beat reporter validated anything that I fucking said. Like 2 episodes ago when I was like, I was asking around and I didn't get a single yes.
Do you think about a back-to-back episode?
Do you think that Chaim Bloom, but they'll sit up there and ask fucking Sam Kennedy about Theo Epstein, right? So they're paying attention. I didn't see anyone else float Theo Epstein's name. That came from us. That got asked at that press conference because we talked about Theo. When we're talking about, I asked around, I didn't get a single yes that Chaim was going to make it out of November as the chief baseball officer. No follow-ups. We didn't get like, hey, contacted the Red Sox and they shouted this down. No, they just waited 2 weeks and then he got fired. And now there's no one saying, credit to fucking name redacted. They were all over this. I didn't see not one reporter, writer, journalist, media. No one said, hey, these guys were all over it. Nobody did that, Tyler.
No, they didn't. And you can go back a year ago. I remember it's probably around August, maybe right after the trade deadline. I think was the first time we heard any of this, that ownership was maybe rethinking their stance on Chaim Bloom. There was a level of questioning. And what was it? Within 12 hours of you saying this, and it was going crazy on social media, we get the Sam Kennedy alert. Alex Cora and Chaim Bloom are going to be here next year. This is what it is. We're happy. It's like, come on, dude. Like, put things together and you can kind of piece this whole puzzle together.
I like being the rogue podcast. I like being the one that they're all listening to, but they'll never acknowledge it. It's fine.
Acknowledge me.
No. Yes. No, come on. They don't have to.
Yes, they
don't
do.
have to. They don't have to. It's fine. It's fine. But I think, to today's news, it is, as I mentioned, a very layered discussion because it's not black and white. There's a lot of gray area here. And I on some parts of it, I feel very strongly about. In some parts of it, there is middle ground where I'm like, well, I could see it a certain way. And the middle ground that I'll talk about is kind of how I signed off the State of the Nation video, where whoever comes in next, they have to make an impact right away. Because if you don't, that next wave, the Kyle Teals, the Marcelo Myers, those guys that are there's going to be a next wave. And a lot of the guys that are coming up now making an impact. It's like, yes, they were developed under Chaim Bloom, but they were Dombrowski guys. But you're going to get that wave of Chaim Bloom talent. So trust me, even though he's fired and there are a lot of Red Sox fans that are happy about that, there are certainly a lot of Red Sox fans that are like, this was a stupid mistake. Like, why could they do it? Like, all this. It's a very, very, very divided issue. And to that, I will say, no one's really wrong. Like, no one's really wrong. But I think the big takeaway, and I should have tweeted this, I didn't have this as part of my take. But this, if you're a Red Sox fan and you're on one side or the other, you're happy about the firing, you're upset about the firing, here's the take that you should come away with from all of this. Firing Chaim Bloom means that the Red Sox give a fuck about winning moving forward. That is the takeaway. How they get there, if they get there, those are questions that remain to be answered at this point in time. But the fact that they saw the product on the field, I don't know. Are they losing right now? So they'll be tied for last place, Jake?
They're actually tied 5-5 right now.
Oh, they're tied. Oh, tie game.
Yankees got a runner on first. Let's be careful.
All right. But for now, let's just say they finish in last or whatever. Who gives a fuck? To Lou Merloni's point, when he put out that video, 4th place, 5th place, who gives a shit? Completely agree. Doesn't matter. No matter what, it's unacceptable. It's not Boston Red Sox baseball. It is last place in 2020. It is surprise ALCS. It's last place in 22, and it's pretty much last place, because if you don't finish in last place this year, you're going to be pretty fucking close to it. You're going to be a lot closer to last place than first place or a playoff spot. So the main takeaway, again, should be that them taking action and firing Chaim Bloom means no more bullshit. Like, it's back to business. It's back to being aggressive. At least that's what we hope, right? It's back to being aggressive, spending money, and we have prospects that we want to trade. And that's part of a bigger discussion as it pertains to Chaim Bloom.
100%. And you start to look at the comments that came out from Sam Kennedy today. It was a different tone. No matter how you want to phrase it, during the Chaim Bloom era, especially the last couple years, more specifically coming into this year, there was a lot of talk about developing younger guys. That's what we're focused on here. It's kind of building up. We want to compete. It wasn't that World Series caliber conversation. Sam Kennedy goes in today, and you could tell he was trying to sell this philosophy change or mindset shift of, we're aiming for World Series championships. That's it. That's the aim. That's the goal. And it was just a different tone than we had heard it just recently overall. And I think you're looking at something here when you mentioned those prospects, the Marcelo Myers, the Kyle Teals. There's going to be Chaim Bloom's fingerprints all over this team in a similar way as Dan Duquette back in the day, how we look at Ben Cherington, in 2018, where, yeah, those guys weren't ultimately the ones that pushed them over the hump. And I think that's where this comes down to. I don't really think it means that much about the result and where the Red Sox were this year. Because if you want to tell me Chaim Bloom failed this team or didn't do much, I think one of the hardest things to swallow here, and Jeff Passan really phrased it this way, was Bloom only got to act like a Red Sox big market GM 1 year. 1 year. And it was 2022. And even then, they only barely went over the luxury tax. It wasn't 270. It wasn't 280. Brian fucking Cashman is sitting up there with a $280 million payroll. He's holding on to his job. He's not going anywhere. He's been doing this and failing miserably. Chaim Bloom had that one chance and he botched it. I'm not telling you 2022 wasn't a failure. We're going to hit on all that. But this year, one of the main reasons we looked at Chaim Bloom and we said we expected him back was his hands were still somewhat tied this year. He wasn't going over the luxury tax. They had chosen to take a step back in a bridge year. So I think this is really coming from a lot of the June Lee report, the stuff we saw last December. And if you just read some of the pieces that have come out today, Chad Jennings had something in The Athletic talking about, and you mentioned it in your video as well, Jared, people in baseball, in the Red Sox front office, not loving Chaim Bloom's process, how he goes about discussing ideas, getting deals done, having these conversations. There was a lot of just people saying he was too deliberate. He lacked the conviction. And I saw people questioning what you meant by conviction in that tweet. But it was clear people saw Chaim Bloom as someone who probably didn't have the ability to slam his fists on the table and get these big deals done, to make those crazy moves where, hey, you may lose. This may blow up in your face. You have to take the risk. You have to trade for Chris Sale. You have to do these things. I think the Red Sox, through this past trade deadline, where not only did they not land a major move, they stood pat. Like, you just didn't really do anything. They probably said, all right, well, this is another deadline where the team is cratered after August. Even in 2021 with Kyle Schwarber, while they won that deadline for what happened in 2021, the negative response, we can't look at Chaim Bloom and know that this guy is willing to do that, and we're gonna cut bait. And this is coming from someone I also thought he deserved another year, but I think that's where they stand. They just did not trust him going into this offseason to make that move, to be able to be the guy to flip them from this 4th place, 5th place team, whatever you want to call them, to a World Series caliber team.
And I think, again, like it is a divided issue. There are people that are upset about this. There are people that think it's the right move. But to kind of get into whether or not it's the right move, we don't know, because it's a time will tell type thing. But at the end of the day, if you're John Henry and you're Sam Kennedy, you know Chaim's MO better than anyone, working alongside him, seeing him behind the scenes and talking to people that work alongside him. So you're getting feedback from people. They don't make a decision like this unless there's probably some kind of, hey, we've crowdsourced some information here and the room feels like this is not the guy moving forward. The room, there was never, and I hate to bring up Theo again, but when Theo is here, everyone believed in Theo. Like if Theo did something, it's like, all right, I wouldn't have done that personally, but that's Theo Epstein and I believe in him. That wasn't the sentiment here with Chaim. If Chaim made a decision and people disagreed with it, the sentiment was, well, I could probably do that better. Or like, I wouldn't have done that. Like, I don't have confidence in the decision to do that or not do that. It was totally different. Like, that's the vibe that, in talking to some individuals with, I hate to be, without naming names, but the word indecisive comes up a lot, and questioning whether or not Chaim can be a leader comes up a lot. And if you're not a leader, if you're not like, because it's not like no one is sitting here saying Chaim's stupid, Chaim can't do this. No. But the feedback more along the lines is he'd be a great number 2 somewhere. He'd be a great number. It's not like he doesn't belong in the front office. The feedback has been in over his head, indecisive, and not a leader. Like, he can be a guy, not the guy. That's been the feedback. So when I sit there and say, or when fans are reacting saying, you gave him 4 years, like you knew that this was going to be a rebuild and now you're judging him based on being in last place, that's not it. Because I would agree with you. If he were a leader and he were, had conviction in his decisions and he wasn't indecisive, then that's you're demonstrating abilities that I think the Red Sox front office would look at and say, okay, maybe we're not quite there yet on the field, but I see the character, I see where this is going, and these attributes that he possesses, that's what we need moving forward. The firing had nothing to do with last place again. Can't do that. Can't finish in last place here in Boston. That's not what this was about. It was about whether or not he was the guy to lead this organization into the next era of contending for World Series titles. And the determination was no, he's not the guy. And if you ask around, you get very valid reasons for that. And, we can talk about the Rob Bradford report today, which I saw on the Section 10 Reddit. People were trying to guess, what was it that I covered my mouth and told you guys? It was that. It was that. Because I already saw Red Sox fans being like, here comes the smear campaign. This is all coming out after the fact. And this is Red Sox ownership trying to make Chaim look bad on the way out. Nope. I said that on the last episode. It was before the firing, and it did not come from Red Sox ownership. And I'll even play the clip as proof. I know that you people probably don't think that I'm lying to you.
Check that shit, please.
But this is the clip unbleeped from last episode. I'm going to cover my mouth, and Jake, you're going to have to bleep it. Actually, ready, Jake? Should I play the Bradford one first? What do you think? Tyler?
I think it's like 2 minutes, right?
Yeah, I mean, we can just play
the first 40 seconds. I think he gets to it pretty quickly.
Okay. So this was Rob Bradford on Jones and Mego.
First, according to a source, when Chris Sale had hurt his hand, it broke his finger in his hand. So you have a couple weeks before the deadline, a team offered to pay for Chris Sale's entire salary for the rest of the time and give players, and they wanted they wanted better players. So they didn't do the deal.
So hang on. So there was a team that was willing to foot the bill for Chris. You're free of Sale
after the broken finger
on the IL, yeah.
And they were going to give you players. What does that mean? Prospects?
I mean,
like lottery.
It might not even been like prospects.
Okay, but who cares? So it would be like
to unload the contract.
It would be like when they unloaded.
It would have been 2.5 years of over $50 million.
It would have been like when they took back Ruby De La Rosa and Alan Webster for Adrian Gonzalez and Josh Beck. It would have been the same idea, right?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, but yeah, I guess
which was
that way.
Which was a good deal.
Well, I mean, with that, yeah, you're right. I mean, the whole idea, and if you look back at it,
wow,
well, that's the gist of it, right? That's the gist of it.
That's it. I do think there's a very important framing of the words there. Players, not prospects. Because when you said the prospects things to me, that's when I dropped the Gammonsy line. If you want to play it,
Okay. So this is the clip that from last episode that was bleeped out. I'm gonna cover my mouth, and Jake, you're gonna have to bleep it. You ready, Jake?
Let's do it.
I was told at the game that Chaim could have traded Chris Sale before the season and gotten prospects back, and it was for the whole contract. Like, he could have gotten Sale off the books, and he said no because he didn't like the return. Like, that's crazy. So, I mean, it's really, and we're joined now by the Mick Man, who. Again, people keep saying, "Oh, Jared, you should be the next GM. You should be the next GM." I just want to take this time to say I am withdrawing my candidacy and endorsing Coley Mick for the next general manager of the Boston Red Sox.
It's not even a good job.
I'd be terrified of my bosses.
Yeah,
It's like a dream job. One I would like, obviously incredibly underqualified for, but like right now, why would anyone even want to sign up for that job? It's like, yeah, if you win, you're not going to get any credit because you're supposed to win here, and if you lose, they're also going to say like horrible things about you the second you leave. Like, sick. Where do I sign up?
yeah.
I think you hope you look at it like, look at Chaim. Chaim came in here and asked to do close to the impossible, right? Like, in terms of, can you somehow rebuild our farm system, but make it not look like a rebuild, but also you really don't get to spend to the level of the Dodgers or the Yankees or anything like that, while also updating our entire infrastructure, which was, dinosaur when you arrived here. Try to update us and the pipeline so it all works together. I guess, like, playing it out with Bloom right now, the thing that weirds me out is going into this year, I think Bloom has done just about what you asked out of him in 2023. There's limitations there, right? The Corey Kluber signing, horrendous, all-time bad defense team, no denying that. But in a bridge year where you don't go over the luxury tax, when you tell a guy this is your final year and he doesn't even get to use all the tools on his tool belt, like, you should at least let that guy have both hands in front of him. Let me spend to the way I need to, and let me try to go all the way here. Now, if you wanted to tell me after 2022, you said fuck off, which even then, he barely went over the luxury tax. I look at that as it's a weird spending situation there, right? Like, you're barely going over. That's not how big market teams act. Maybe for the Braves or the Astros or whatever. But, there was a major mistake in 2022 that you could say, dude, you stayed over the luxury tax. That is something we can't forgive. That was a dumb move that nobody could justify. All right, I could come to understand it. In 2023, where you don't have that same expectation, where, they're basically better than what many people projected. 78 wins was the over-under. They're going to get 500, maybe a little better, maybe a little worse. They're going to pass it. It feels like awkward timing, at least on my part. That's why it seemingly comes down to how maybe the people in the room see him. And that group has been together for a long time. It's a tough way of going about the business. And it all depends on the replacement. Like, if you're going to go find another guy here that is, another version of Bloom, like, what are we doing? Now, if your big fish is like something that you can easily justify and people can't question, like, we're talking like Chris Antonetti. Okay. Like, that's a guy I look at even a tier above David Stearns, because that guy made a fucking World Series in Cleveland. Right. All right. If you're telling me you're going to go get the friggin' A's GM, holy shit. I can't watch Red Sox baseball. I'm going to rip my fucking eyes out.
Yeah. But I think the fatal flaw here, going back to the point about the indecisiveness. So now you have the report about you could have offloaded Chris Sale's contract, and it didn't happen because you didn't like the return of players. And then you go back to the deadline that you just cited, 2022, not getting under the luxury tax. You had a deal in place with the Dodgers for JD Martinez, and it didn't happen because you didn't like the return. Like, it's not about the return. It's not about the return with Sale. It's not about the return with JD. It was about, in the Sale case, getting the contract off the books. And with JD, it was about getting under the luxury tax. So that's not something that you had to deal with that offseason or the following season. That was the fatal flaw.
Do you hear yourself?
Yeah.
We're still talking about the luxury tax. Like, it's still someone else's fault that ownership wants to be cheap. That's the part of the story that's driving me.
I feel like anyone that like
insane.
talks about like, oh, the luxury, who cares about the luxury tax? Like that's like such an easy, cheap pop to get from fans.
It's not who cares.
It is.
Not
it's
who
a cheap.
cares.
Every team, Coley.
When you're talking about
every
Chris Sale,
team goes under the luxury
specifically,
tax. The Dodgers just did it. Like every team eventually has
I'm not
to do
saying
it.
don't do it. I'm not saying
Padres
never
were begging
do
to do
I'm
it.
saying
Yeah.
the idea that it's some crutch that the front office just gets to keep throwing at people. And I'll say it. I'm going to say this till I'm dead. Liverpool fans see Fenway Sports Group for what they are, much clearer than Red Sox fans, and that they've been there for like 10 years. Like it's not even a new thing for them, and they just understand these guys. It's infuriating. If people want to talk about Chris Sale, the only thing you should talk about is who the fucking idiot was who signed him before he hit free agency. That was where the Chris Sale deal went wrong.
Yes.
Not Chaim. Because let's talk about another Boston team that traded an injured player. His name was Isaiah Thomas. Multiple big NBA free agents have said out loud, either by themselves or through their parents, they won't even consider going to Boston because of how they treated Isaiah Thomas. I understand baseball's a little bit different than basketball in many different ways. I also understand if you trade Chris Sale while he's hurt and you're already having the trouble enough convincing free agents to come choose you over other teams, I imagine stuff like that gets brought up. That's bad business. And if you had traded JD at the trade deadline, if they'd traded Xander at the trade deadline, people can't stomach a sell like that.
I don't think you weren't going to trade Xander. They weren't going to trade Xander.
No, but it was on the table then. Like it was something that was talked
Xander,
about.
I think,
the Mets and
no,
all
because
that.
Xander, if you remember, Xander was like, "Oh, I don't know if I should be sharing this publicly," but they told me that I'm not going anywhere. Like he was not getting traded.
Sure, I'm more talking about the conversations that were happening around that time. It was like, why don't some people were saying full sell? Fucking 2 months ago, I was saying sell Paxton, and people were saying you can't do that. You need his arm in the rotation. All of a sudden, now you can trade Chris Sale. Like he was, I get it. He was
that
hurt,
was another one too. I'm pretty
in.
sure. I think like they were talking to the Dodgers about Paxton and didn't like the return, so it didn't happen. It's the same thing. And again, like who knows what the deal was with Verdugo? Like it was like something about Clark Schmidt and Alex Verdugo, but then I also heard that there was something with the Astros. So who knows?
Well, I think with the Chris Sale and the James Paxton thing, those are like super different conversations, if we're being honest, right? Like, Jared, your report on the James Paxton thing, it's like the number 15 overall prospect in their system. I'm good. Like, I think for where you are and where that window was, I think with Chris Sale, the reality is knowing a guy who, and you can look at May of this year and maybe say, well, that's the fucking point. Like, look, that guy for a month, he was Chris Sale again. Like, he was pumping 98, 99, looking like that guy. At that point, if you can offload that money, that's a total game changer.
Here's my overall stance when it comes to anything that happens after someone's fired by the Red Sox ownership group. I take that, I throw it away. All of it. And I understand you heard that Chris Sale stuff beforehand. How long ago?
Within the last week.
So they already knew he was gone when that got floated.
We could assume that, maybe.
Again, Terry Francona. Does anyone here have a bad word to say about Terry Francona? Because I know a couple of fellas who do.
Because we did address this. The sale report didn't come from someone. It came from the team that he was supposedly going to. So we can cross off the ownership smear campaign.
Around here, it came from Bradford. He was the one. Who was
but I know where it
and
came from.
Breaking news.
It didn't come from. It didn't come from ownership.
Sure, but I also can't, based on their history, both recent and long, give them the benefit of the doubt.
I'm telling you that it didn't come from ownership. It came from the team that he was supposedly being traded to.
And we're not going to say the team, but if we look at the team, it's the kind of deal they would kind of look for.
Yeah, sure.
No, I agree. I'm not saying that didn't happen. I'm saying like the prospect return or the eating all the money stuff.
You're not getting fucking prospects back in that deal. I'm fucking sorry. You're probably getting Jerry Sands. You're getting Jerry Sands from the Dodgers coming back to you. Like that's what you're looking at. There you go.
And we're talking about that in regards to this offseason, which they were already under the luxury tax for, and they're already going over anyway. So that's where the luxury tax thing doesn't make any fucking sense.
The bigger point,
but you want to talk about it like you're saying, resetting the luxury tax. I understand that. That's literally why Chaim was hired.
Right, but then now you
And
have
he
to
did
go
it.
into next year paying Chris Sale $30-something million, and it's another year where it's like, all right, how many starts are we going to get out of Chris Sale? Like, how do we build this roster knowing like he may start 25 games, he may start 2 games? Like that's what you're not trying to. It's not a luxury tax issue with Chris Sale. It was with JD. Like that was a luxury tax thing, 1,000%. With Chris Sale, it's more like. Now we have to how many you can't plan for the future with Chris Sale. Because either you're going to get first half of the season, Chris Sale, where he is, like you said, an ace throwing 98, 99, and maybe he pitches the whole first half and he's great. But then can you pencil him in for the second half? You can't. So it's just harder. You can't pencil in anyone, especially now. Like we've seen the list of pitchers that have gotten hurt this year, Coley.
What I was going to say is you can't pencil him in. You can pencil in that team for still being stupid by the time the offseason comes. And how many times? I'll go back to Isaiah Thomas. Don't think I won't. Those conversations happen well before the deadline. So many trades happen early, don't get pushed through, and then get picked up later on. There's no doubt in my mind that team, especially given the fact that they may or may not have just acquired a pitcher who already got hurt, would probably be in the market for that pitcher again. There's no doubt in my mind you can still make that trade in the offseason if they're still stupid, which they still would be.
Maybe. I don't know. But
another thing to throw in, Chris Sale has no trade rights. So even if
he's got 10-5.
Yeah, if a deal's put in place, Chris Sale may tell you, go fuck off. Like, you know what I mean? This is where I've been. I earned this deal. I'm not moving.
Yep, correct. 10-5 rights. He could have vetoed any trade to any team that he wanted to. Also, I think the bigger point there with the Sale stuff is if you're upset that they didn't trade Chris Sale to offload his salary, you're also kind of operating under the pretense that you're assuming that they would have allocated those funds elsewhere, which we don't know that they would have done that.
Right.
So it may have been like, all right, yeah, we saved John Henry $33 million, but like, was it reinvested in the roster? Don't know. We don't know the answer to that.
Right.
That's
They're
not
not
part of the
spending-
report.
If you're Chaim,
Yeah, they're not even
If
spending
you're
every
Chaim-
dollar this year. You look at Red Sox payroll, they're at like 228. And that was one of my issues with the deadline. It's like, fuck it. If you're really just caring about staying under the luxury tax, you could do something with $4 million. There's some way you can make a move to get pitching or whatever you were hoping for. Where was that?
I mean, Zach Eflin is probably a Boston Red Sox right now if that trade goes through, maybe.
Chronic knee issues. I'm good.
What do you mean? He's been really good.
I don't trust those knees.
He's been
if
really
you're
good this year.
Chaim,
And the knees have still
if you're
bucked.
Chaim, you're like, where am I going to get a pitcher better than Chris Sale? Truly. Like, I know he's injured. I know he has plenty of problems, but like you're saying, will that money get reallocated? No. So
Don't
where
know.
am I going to get a guy who has his potential? No, but from his shoes, he knows like he signed 2 guys north of what did Yoshida get? Was it 100?
90.
With the posting, yeah, it was over
90.
100.
So yeah, Yoshida got 90. Story got, I mean, his number's so weird because
140?
he gets the opt-in after next year. But it's 140. You can go up to like 168, right?
Something like that. Yeah.
168 or something like that. So those are the 2 big deals. What was the third biggest deal? Was it Kenley?
Yeah.
Maybe the Kike deal,
Probably,
1
like-
year for 10.
Yeah, I mean, Kenley got what, 2 for 24 or something
Yeah,
like
more,
that.
was
So
it 32?
maybe it was 16 a year. So like that's the chasm between his second and third big. And I'm not, obviously Devers doesn't count, but in terms of free agency, yeah, 2 for 32. Like what was he to do? That's why he was like, he hit on Walker. He tried it again with Kluber, failed horribly.
Well, he missed on Richards first.
He did miss on Garrett
He
Richards.
did.
People don't like to talk about that.
No. Got swept under the rug a lot.
Was he? No, he wasn't a Dries guy. That was Dombrowski. And that brings me back to my larger point. I've seen so many people saying that he should have been fired the day Xander didn't re-sign. It's like, first of all, he would have been fired if he gave Xander the contract the Padres gave him.
Correct.
Secondly, like, do you think Chaim Bloom didn't want Xander here? Like, the whole time he was here? Like, Dombrowski gave him that hometown discount, stupid-ass fucking deal that even had an opt-out in it. It's insane. It's genuinely insane. Like, I don't think he was perfect GM by any stretch. I know GM's not the term they use for that position anymore. But like, people harp on the people think the things people are harping on the most are the things that were out of his control entirely. He didn't come here and was like, you know what, I'm going to wow him over with in the meeting. I think Mookie Betts fucking stinks. Like, that wasn't how he got the job.
No.
Like, and people are like, why did he trade him? He was told to trade him. He had no choice in the matter.
Yeah.
And that's like my issue with the whole framing of this whole thing. It's like 2020, I don't count it. Like Eduardo Rodriguez, myocarditis, Chris Sale blows his elbow, Alex Cora suspended. See you later. That year, it's a punt year. Who gives a fuck? Right. 2021, that's an A. 2022 to me, I think that's a D. If you want to go lower, I think that's a conversation with the luxury tax and how it all played. And there were injuries in there. This year, it's like, I think if you're being harsh, it's a C. Like it's a C. I'd argue with all the signings, he had on a lot more signings this year than he didn't. And that's just the reality with all the holes plugged. Chris Martin, who's arguably the best reliever in baseball this year, Kenley Jansen, like you said, Yoshida, Justin fucking Turner. Like, do we have to go down the list there? And yeah, you have Kluber and Kike as part of that. I'm sorry, Kike Hernandez fucking forgetting how to play defense when Alex Cora told you that his biggest takeaway during spring training was how good Kike's defense was. I'm not putting that one on Chaim. You can if you want. If that's your whole take or whatever it is, have fun with that. But the reality is, in betting on Connor Wong and Reese McGuire to be a fine catching duo, Chaim hit on a lot more this year than he missed. That's why I just look at the timing here, and it's weird. I don't look at it as they claim 2023 is the issue. I think they say some of the PR stuff we have going on, the shit that's been going on with the fan base and people showing up. We know how this ownership group gets, where they get a little weird with it. It starts to affect them. I bet that played in. I think the underlying thing, what was it between him and Alex Cora? What was that relationship like, to the point where did Cora say, like, really, this ain't the guy for me, man? And you kind of got to pick here. Maybe I'm the one moving up. Maybe I'm the one sitting here, but this doesn't work. That's something that, in my opinion, I am a Cora over Bloom guy. That's the stuff that could accelerate that conversation. Just to me, it's like, if the deadline was the final straw to you where you were unhappy, then he should have been fired a week into August, 2 weeks into August, and you should have had this all figured out. Because now we're going to sit here. It doesn't seem like they have a guy, because last time they interviewed one guy. They interviewed one, and it was Chaim Bloom. He was the one they envisioned. They had got all these recommendations. Now we're going to go through a whole fucking search here and try to figure it out in an offseason where from day fucking one, you need to be ready to go.
Maybe not. We don't know that they aren't eyeing someone. We don't know that.
But they're going to be doing a search. There's going to be multiple people this time instead of one guy.
Sure. But maybe that's just like a preparation thing, because maybe the guy that they want, they don't know if they can get, or like, because you also have to consider, I know Coley came in and listed off all the great things about inheriting this job, but I think the downside to inheriting this fucking job is, I could get fired after a few years, and it might not even be my fault. Like with Chaim, it's like
fired and slandered.
Yeah. Yeah.
The last three guys, you can say that. They all got pushed out the door probably sooner than they deserved.
And that's why I see Charrington when I see Chaim. Like, he'll ultimately be remembered, and I'm going to piss people off, by smarter fans for the trades he didn't make that set up your next era. What people wanted to, it's always these quick fixes. Give me Cole Hamels, give me Matt Harvey. And then you hear what they want back for these players, and it's Xander and Mookie. And it's like, why would Charrington ever make those trades? It's insane. And you talk about cheap pops, Jared, with me talking about the luxury tax. The cheapest pop is ownership being like, we're going to fire Chaim. That's what people are going to like the most. That's how we get people back on our side. That's the cheap pop here.
I love the reaction today.
Yes and no.
Course,
yes and no.
Love it.
Yes and no. I think the cheap pop will be, because put it this way, spending a fuck ton of money, as we've seen with the Mets and the Padres, is not always the solution to your organization's problems. But that's the cheap pop. Like, if they go out and spend $250 million on Yamamoto, and they sign Blake Snell, and they sign, that's the cheap pop. It's, hey, we're the Red Sox, we're back. Does that guarantee a winning season next year? No, it does not. It doesn't. Coley, it doesn't. It doesn't. It does not.
You cut out.
Yeah, we lost
heard
you.
None of that.
Like for 20 seconds.
I saw your face be like, I'm disagreeing with this. But I'm saying, like,
no, I didn't hear any of you. Well, I mean, you talk about our own team, Hanley and Pablo, the same offseason. People, myself included, fucking love that shit. I didn't. But it's I understand. But people, what I'm going to be furious about is if this next guy comes in and goes, hey, we need starting pitching, I'm going to trade for it. That would infuriate me.
See you, Roman Anthony. Maybe Marcelo.
I would break the TV over my knee.
Rafaela.
I'm not saying don't trade any of them. There's obviously a logjam.
You can't keep them all.
No, exactly. You can't keep them all. But if they Dombrowski it, if they gut the system, I will be furious. There's too many adequate pitchers, like upper echelon pitchers, that you can just throw money at. I'm tired.
I agree.
Just do that.
Also,
use your strength. It would be like going into war right now with the United States and being like, we only want hand-to-hand combat. I know we spend the most on like bombs and jets and all that. We just want to square up.
So Maz actually made a really good point. And this goes back a little bit here. Their talent evaluation is really the issue here. Because, I love Bob, but Bob's just been mashing dingers down in AAA for the last year and change. His trade value was sky high halfway through 21, or the second half of 21.
After 2021.
Yes. So the second half of 2021, it was him and Bryce Harper that were leading the way in offensive categories. Did they sell on that? No, they didn't. And they knew they had Casas coming, and they didn't evaluate that and assess that for the future. With the Roman Anthony's of the world, the Marcelo Myers of the world, it's like you have to have someone that can evaluate this talent and say, this guy's staying, this guy, we have a place for him. This guy's really good, but I don't know where he fits in. All right, we trade that guy. Because you do have an influx of minor league talent. They're not all going to have spots up here. You need to make the determinations of who's in, who's out, and who is valuable in a trade to get you another piece that you need to plug somewhere else. Like that is really what you're looking for. And when you look at the criticisms of Chaim Bloom, that was the crux of it. He couldn't make the decisions. He couldn't say, I believe in this player. I don't believe in that player. Like this is the pitcher that I want to acquire. Like those were the decisions where everyone was looking around, being like, make a decision. Make a decision. Instead of looking around the room for approval and being like, all right, I think we should do this. You're waiting for the approval of this person or that person to sign off on it so that you have more confidence in the decision. And it just wouldn't happen. So the deal wouldn't happen. Instead of just being like, I don't give a fuck what everyone else in this room thinks. This is what I think, and we're doing it. That didn't happen.
Part of the problem is I don't think the farm was ready to, like, you also can't make a decision on Roman Anthony. We drafted him last fucking year.
I'm not saying like Roman, I'm saying moving forward. No, but that's part of my problem with it. Like, give it a little time. I had someone tweet me today. They were like, you look at teams like the Orioles and the Rays and how much farther ahead they are of us. Yeah, they started before us with the tear down and the rebuilding and all that. Like, yeah, they should be ahead of us right now. That's where we should be, just with our homegrown guys next year and the year after. That's where it was like, I don't necessarily disagree. They should have traded Bob, but we were saying the same thing about Duran 2 years ago too. And now he looks like a real player for us. So that's where it's like, you trade Bob banking on Casas. How many first baseman prospects have we talked about? Lars Anderson, Sam Travis, that we thought were going to be Tristan Casas, and we're not. Like, some of these guys just mature a little bit differently. And then you also have to factor in, for Chaim specifically, one whole year of his tenure, there were no minor leagues. The entire 2020 season, there were no minor leaguers to evaluate.
Mm-hmm.
For 2 years, he got to evaluate?
Yeah, in his first draft had fucking 5 rounds. Like, you didn't even have a full draft to kind of get your farm system. Like, say what you will. Say you hit on a pick in the fucking 7th round, the 12th round, whatever it is. Those are some of the pieces you can move. I do agree from the Bobby Delbeck standpoint. Like, yeah, that was a guy they should have moved. They were late on that. And I think Bloom was sitting there and he was hoping that whatever clicked in that stretch was going to last. I didn't personally think it was, but that's a bad move on their part.
And it didn't matter anyway because they knew Casas was the guy.
Well, yes. And it did get a little muddy that following year where they thought he was going to be ready, but he gets the high ankle sprain and all that plays out.
Right.
I don't ever look at it as I don't think he's a bad talent evaluator. I think it's more pulling the trigger. No. As we saw this year, like, you don't sign all these guys on deals and a lot of them work out a lot more than didn't. If you can't view talent, I think the reality was at times that Chaim loves some of his pieces a little too much. Maybe he just looked at him, and I think that might be one of the pros of bringing someone else in who doesn't have the same connection. But I'm not going to disagree. I don't think the farm system, it was easy to construct a deal an offseason ago for an ace or something like that. I don't think it was that simple. I think where you fucked up was it was supposed to be a year where you should have been able to spend money and do things if you handled the luxury tax the right way.
Well, it's also who are you trading for? Because I'm thinking of the aces who have gotten traded since the last deadline. It's like Luis Castillo went for a lot. and was not that great this season. He was obviously electric last year. He's been better as of late, but got off to a shit start. Is that the deal people want? Could we've even matched it at the time? We didn't have Noelvi. Like, we didn't have that.
It's Marcelo.
So that's where, right. And I don't want to do that necessarily. I know he hasn't been the best this year. He's also been banged up. So it's like the Italian evaluation, when we went from dead last to fifth in terms of our own talent, feels like the wrong take. It's more like, was it time to push in yet? I don't know that it was. If the major league team was more knocking on the door, sure. Yeah, I think it's a super fair criticism. They weren't. At none of the deadlines was it like time to go all in. That's where it's like, I just think he needed, and you said it earlier in your Instagram video, he should have been given this offseason with a full purse. And if by February he couldn't close a deal, I don't mind getting rid of him there. Like, you don't even have to wait for the season, but at least give him the offseason. He's been planning for this offseason. Like, right. I don't know why you'd want to mess with that, especially like we've said, without having someone, that's the guy. And I do think, I hate going back to the Celtics. I hear a lot of Danny Ainge complaints when people are talking about Bloom. And if Cora just moves up, I don't know that that's the worst idea.
It's not the worst idea. And I also don't think that it's far-fetched. But I said it before. I'll say it again. This offseason was basically Chaim Bloom's phase 2. Like, once the season ended, it's like, okay, we have gone from dead last to fifth with the farm system. We got under the luxury tax. We have pieces of the core that are here. It's not a complete core, but there are pieces. We have money to spend. We have prospects to deal from. Quote unquote, let Chaim cook. I thought that that's what this offseason was going to be. The Red Sox felt differently. I think it goes back to crowdsourcing and hearing how, like I referenced in the video, like if you're an agent or you're an executive on another team and you're like, man, I really don't want to deal with this guy because we're just going to haggle over prospects, waste my fucking time, and then no deal is going to happen. If that's where they were at, which is what's been thrown around, then I'm asking you, Coley, is that who you want to lead this team? If your guy is calling teams to make deals or calling agents to negotiate contracts, and they huff and puff and roll their eyes when they see the name pop up, is that who you want running the ship?
The trade thing, you don't know what names they're tossing around, so it's one I can't speak to. The agent one I can speak to directly, we know that's not him. We know he's been given a very strict budget to work off of. So yeah, I'm sure people are furious just seeing the Red Sox call. Now, when the next guy gets or girl, like you said, gets the job, and they're like, hey, we're back to the big bank Red Sox. Yeah, I'm sure they're going to be super easy and super eager to talk to them. And that was my biggest problem when they fired Dombrowski in the first place, if you remember, was that it was such a hard pivot from what we'd been used to the previous 20 years. It was such a going backwards. It was like the Red Sox going to spend, Red Sox going to spend, Red Sox going to spend. By the way, while they were spending, while Theo was spending, while everyone was spending, they didn't have that hard of a time building up a farm system. It was only once Dombrowski got here where you could only do one. All of a sudden that changed too.
Right.
That was bizarre. So
Theo
once
did
Dombrowski got
better
fired,
than anybody
without like sweating, he did both. But when Dombrowski got fired and they were like, hey, by the way, we really like what Tampa's doing, it was just like, I don't disagree all of it, but I do disagree with Tampa Bay's we might play half our season in Montreal because we're that poor thought process. Mm-hmm. So yeah, when Chaim's calling people, and part of the reason he can land Story is because he gives him the same deal a different team was rumored to give him. They just pulled out because they didn't love the injuries and they went out and got other guys.
Also, I think Texas was asking him to play center field.
Correct.
Yes. Yeah. So that's where it was just like, yeah, if we're talking the same numbers, yeah, the Red Sox still make sense to free agents. When he's calling up everyone else and he's like, listen, this is the max I'm legally allowed to tell you. How is that on him? Like, that's where I don't understand.
Yeah. No, to the point about the money, and everyone's like, oh, it's the Tampa Bay Red Sox. Like they're not spending, and it's what Chaim Bloom wants to do. Any big money decision is signed off by ownership. Like Trevor Story, Rafael Devers, that's all signed off by ownership. That's not Chaim Bloom waking up one day saying, you know what? This Rafael Devers guy, he's pretty good. I think I'm going to give him over $300 million. Like, that's not Chaim Bloom. That's no. Everyone knows Rafael Devers is very good. Everyone knows Rafael Devers should be here long term. And it's going to John Henry and saying, please, Mr. Sugar Daddy, can I have $330 million so I can give it to this player so he can stay here? That's how that works. Like, that's... You're not convincing Chaim Bloom one way or the other that Rafael Devers is a really good hitter and he should be here long term. Everyone fucking knows that.
And if you remember, who was quick to swoop in and take all the credit for signing Devers?
Was it Eddie Romero?
No, it was John Henry.
Oh, because
to you.
Well, wasn't it Eddie Romero? Eddie Romero was the one I think that went to the Dominican and like had the conversation. I think he like spearheaded
with
it, maybe?
Henry.
Yeah.
With Henry.
Yeah.
Because Henry, the story was he heard it wasn't done. It was close, but not done. So he got on his private jet, flew to the Dominican, and he sealed the deal.
Yeah.
He got that story out immediately to be like, look, Chaim couldn't even do it. That's what I talk about when I talk about, like, the Red Sox are a PR firm. They're not a baseball team anymore.
Yeah.
And that's what infuriates me.
So I think like you jumped in, and I don't think like you jumped in the middle of the conversation. I think we should kind of go back to the beginning with you a little bit. Like when you saw the news, like what was your, like, I'm just going to read into it here. I don't think that you're happy about it. Where, like, give me like the long-term view instead of being like, oh, it shouldn't have happened. Here's what they should have done. Now that it's happened and there's nothing you can do about it, where are you at?
It really depends on, like I was just saying, which route they take. If they start trading prospects instead of just spending money, that's going to infuriate me. If they come in, evaluate, and obviously
what if they trade for Juan Soto and then pay him?
So it would be hard to get mad, but I also think he's just going to hit free agency, and I think you can sign him. Like, and I don't know,
he's
like
next door neighbor with David Ortiz.
For sure, yeah. I've said forever we should be leaning on every Dominican free agent, even if they're not like great, like because of the Ortiz. Like I want that going forever. Like Pedro and Ortiz will eventually be the old grandparents, and Manny will be the grandparents for those generations. You need to keep doing that. So yeah, I'm all in on Soto. Like the most in on Soto. That was like one of the only positives that went off in my head was like, oh, if they're gonna again pivot and go back to the way it was, they're getting in at the right time to do that at least. But I also don't think Chaim was incapable of doing that if he was just emboldened by the people above him to spend. Like, I don't think he was incapable of doing that. Otherwise, he wouldn't have gotten Yoshida. I know he got sewered by anonymous GMs the second he got Yoshida. People said he overspent on Yoshida.
Correct.
So, like, is he too big of a pussy to not spend, or is he an overspender? Like, those don't line up to me. And the reason I keep bringing it back to Dombrowski is because we talk about the Devers contract, we talk about Xander leaving. All of those are his fault. They should have been the ones who got signed, not Eovaldi, not Sale in 2019. You're not even looking at half the problems you have right now if Dombrowski did his fucking job. Like, and when you look at Theo, what was something that Theo got in 04, not necessarily 07. In 04, he got a lot of Duquette's credit, right?
Yes. Yeah. It was about 40%, maybe more Duquette.
But probably more. Like, it was shit. Like, Theo obviously rounded. That's what it is. The Red Sox have a guy set everything up for someone else to come in and smooth out the edges. That's what it is every time. It's like having a journalist and an editor. They have a journalist write 5,000 word article, expose, and then an editor's like, yeah, I'm just going to write the title and slap my name on it, and here we go. Like, it's kind of infuriating. That's why it's like, all right, where am I at in the cycle of Red Sox GMs if I'm a prospective GM? Oh, they just had the guy do all the hard work and I just have to come spend money? Yeah, I'd love to be their GM. Oh, it's the guy building the team? No, I don't want any part of that.
I think the difference here in the comparison to Duquette and Chaim is Duquette got Damon, got Manny, got Pedro, got Veritek, got D'Lo. Like, he got all those guys. And then Theo brought in a lot, like Bill Miller and David Ortiz.
Schilling and Folk.
Yeah, those guys.
I'm not giving him credit for Ortiz. Pedro signed Ortiz.
You're right. But like, so that there was like a big chunk, and then Theo put like the finishing touches on it. I think
For
when we
sure.
look back on the Chaim era, it's like, well, what would he have done? Because this offseason, that was my point at the end of the video, is it's a what if. Like, what would he have done?
Right.
And if you're going to ask me point blank, do you have confidence that Chaim would have carried out a productive offseason? Even after all the scarring, even after like we hated this trade deadline, we hated that trade deadline, this offseason wasn't good enough, that offseason wasn't good enough. Even after all of that, I still had optimism about this offseason. At least like I still do think that like they're gonna do something big, even like we don't know who's gonna do it. But if you were to ask me, even after all the poor deadlines and off seasons or whatever, and this past one wasn't bad at all, I still would have sat there and told you I think Chaim would have had a satisfactory to above average offseason. I do kind of think that. Am I an idiot?
No, I don't think so. And that's why I keep going back to Cherington with him. I think he would have had, Ben Cherington's a good GM. I still stand on that. And I think Chaim's a good GM. I think they work with the tools that they're given. And again, they're not going to hit on all of them. I don't know anyone who does. And it kind of also goes back to Danny Ainge. I don't know why it's so clear to me and not to everyone else. People killed Danny Ainge for not trading those Brooklyn picks. Killed him. Now Jason Tatum's a top 5 player in the league. Is that a crazy assumption for Marcelo Meyer? Not necessarily. Is it a crazy assumption that Roman Anthony could be one of the best power hitters in the league? No, not based off his pedigree. So if those are his Jalen and Tatum, I'm glad he didn't trade him. Like super glad he didn't trade him.
Can't you picture Bloom following the Cherington route and like 4 or 5 years from now, he lands with a smaller market kind of spot, and that's where he kind of goes and conducts things? I think the biggest thing you just wish here is Bloom got an offseason where he had everything at his disposal. Let him fully be the guy that, can combine the farm system and all these things. Because even if you talk about 2022 in that year, the farm system wasn't where it needed to be. It was improving. It was getting to that point, but there was no Roman Anthony at that time. Yeah, you were moving up along those lines, but Brian Bayo was climbing. Tristan Casas was climbing. It takes time for those players. Now you have the young core. You have the money under the luxury tax, and you have the farm system. You've completed the trifecta. There's nothing else left to do in terms of infrastructure that way. Why not let him cook? Why are you at least framing it like you're holding this year against him, like this year was some big failure, when the entire organization was clearly on the same page that it was a bridge year?
Yeah, it's frustrating. Like, I do think he was good enough. I don't think he was like Theo's going to be the greatest GM any of us have ever seen. I don't know that anyone will live up to that. Chaim was more than good enough to do this job.
Is there a hire out there? Like, whatever your hire is in Coley, I've been gone, I know, for like 5-6 minutes, so I didn't hear everything you said.
Yeah, you've been struggling.
Yeah, it's been a battle. I was fighting my mic. I was fighting everything. I restarted. I'm here. But I think that's where it comes down to with this next hire. It has to be something you can justify. If you can make it look like a legit upgrade, or even if you're pulling from someone in the Dodgers front office, I know everyone's talking about Gomes because he's from Fall River, all this different stuff. Okay, that's a different conversation. Maybe that's an elite talent that you look at and say that.
Listen, hold on. You can't have someone from Fall River running the team. I won't stand for that.
Hey, they're lower than Brockton. You are
Johnny
right about
Feidelberg on the 1s and 2s of the Boston.
Yeah, I can't. Nope.
No.
I just look at it, and I think even Gomes fits into that conversation. Well, it's kind of another version of Bloom, is it not? The only difference you could convince to me was he was pitching for the Rays for 4 years. So is that, all right, well, Alex Cora, the former player, Cora and Bloom, obviously Bloom was never a baseball player. Is that a relationship where they think that mixes and makes sense? I'm so curious as to where Alex Cora stood, because I sent that interview to you this morning, Jared. I was like, listen to this. We're going to have some good shit to talk about tonight. These are real quotes, right? Now you sit here and you question, and I don't think they can make a move like this. I know Cora played dumb today in the media. And it's like, oh, we were talking about the future and we had all this stuff going on. He's a good kid. There's no way this move is made without Alex Cora's input. That's just the reality of it, especially if Sam Kennedy's sitting in the presser today before they hire the next fucking guy saying, yeah, I expect him to be our manager. You look at all these other jobs. Managers don't last from one front office guy to the other. That's not a thing. Usually the new guy comes in and maybe it's a year and then they go their own way. No, the Red Sox organization is saying Alex Cora is part of this foundation. He's just like Tristan Casas. He's just like Brian Bayo. He just sits in the dugout.
That's why I don't want to fall into the trap, so to speak. Not that I think it's one, but for the last roughly 15 years, anytime that there is a managerial change, everyone's like, got to put tech. It's got to be tech. Like, well, obviously it's tech, right? Like, it's almost like, Red Sox fans or baseball fans in general. It's like, who baseball players are. You don't open up a pack of Tops and it's like, oh, look, it's fucking Andrew Friedman. Like, you don't know, like, there's no baseball reference for like, oh, like, I'm going to look at all the executives and see what their numbers are. You're not like going to know all the executives and shit like that. So in a moment like this, where you fire a general manager, you're like, I don't know, put fucking Alex Cora as the general manager, Dustin Pedroia is the manager, and Jason Varitek's the bench coach. Like, that's just what you do. Like, oh, Pedro Martinez is the pitching coach, and David Ortiz is coaching first. And fucking Pokey Reese is the third base coach. Done. Problem solved. So I feel like that's often what we as fans jump to is, I don't know. I don't have a Rolodex of baseball executives that I can jump to. Like, we threw Theo Epstein out there. Yeah, no, Theo was here. You've won 2 World Series here.
Think about the other names. Theo. We're talking Mike Hazen. All right, a guy who was here when fucking Theo was here. Like, we're pairing all these different names together, just guys that spent time in the Red Sox organization.
Yeah, like, we're not going to break down fucking, like, Jason McLeod and all these motherfuckers.
More 2005 to 2009. I think he was your scouting director. Like, all these guys have some kind of, connection, and that's what's easy for the beat writers. I understand they got shit to write. What scares me,
but all that to say, again, I don't think the core thing is far-fetched. I don't think like, you're not just saying like, hey, take former player X and put him in this position because he's a former player that we all like and we think he could do the job. Like, I think Cora is a different breed.
Now, my question would be, and Coley, I think this is some of the stuff you were saying earlier. My biggest concern with the hire is they're going to get away from the idea that you need to keep the farm system where it needs to be. You just need to act like the fucking Boston Red Sox. That's the other half of it. Be like the Dodgers. But Correct. You need to keep supplementing that farm system. That's why the Dodgers, through everything, all the injuries they had this year, they are where they are, right? Like, that's how you maintain. I love Alex Cora, and I think he's a great baseball mind, and I think he could be a very good, piece in a front office. You put him and Varitek together. Do I trust them to put the right emphasis in infrastructure on that farm and get it to where it needs to go? That would be a heavy concern for me. And I'd wonder, and that's something, credit to Bloom for all his failures and everything. He's an expert in that. Gomes from the Dodgers, he's an expert in that. Whoever you want to mention in this conversation, Chris Antonetti with Cleveland, pitching pipeline for fucking days. Genius at that. If you get away from that method, you are going to end up in a very similar situation you were in 2019. Because guess what? You can spend the fucking money. You can throw the money at guys. That's not shitting on Dombrowski because you got to do it the right way. But anyone can spend money. You might just end up spending money and you don't even end up with a ring this time. You need to do both or it wastes this entire Chaim Bloom tenure. He's gotten you the foundation underneath you below the major league level. Don't fuck that shit up. But I don't trust ownership because they'll throw it away if it means 2 to 3 years of getting people off their ass and at least putting up an image that looks different than what we saw the last couple of years.
What about Cashman?
That's the biggest fuck you. Like, if I'm Chaim Bloom and I'm sitting there, I'm like, this guy spent $280 fucking million worse than me, and there's nothing going to happen to him. They tried. We didn't even try.
Sure.
We didn't even go all the way in. We had one hand behind our back this year, and we did the same shit as them.
But if the offseason, especially this one, if the edict is just like, hey, spend money, he's been dying to do that. Like, no one's been dying to spend money. Like all the money he's spent is old money. It's not even new fun stuff, like other than Rodon. Like, if you talk about agents who have been dying to see someone's name with some money behind them, you bring in Cashman for like 2 off seasons, I guarantee you he's not going to fuck with the farm system, and he will go spend that money.
He really would. Also, the one name we haven't mentioned at all that was the first name ever mentioned when this stuff was floating around was Brian Sabian.
How fucking old is he?
67. And that would, now let's put our John Henry glasses on here. They don't like the nerd. They don't like the young guy. Let's bring in the close to senior citizen. And he is a senior citizen after 65, right? Like, let's bring him in, and most fans will say, all right, like, They're done with the nerds. Even though you look at some of the stuff Sabian did with the Giants, it's really farm system built, it's defense and pitching. But with some other stuff there, don't get me wrong.
The nerds. I just like aggressive nerds. Like I want my nerd to have
That's
rabies.
the difference. If you want to get me an aggressive nerd, I can understand and accept this. It doesn't mean I won't say, all right, I think you were a little quick with Chaim. But we also said they were a little quick with Dombrowski. We said they were quick with Charrington. So like, if you find a nerd that's willing to put his fucking nuts on the table, that's a different question. That's why
nuts.
Why not? Who doesn't want to see his nuts?
I don't know. I'm just asking.
Coley, you want to look at the nuts?
You gotta. If he doesn't
you
have
gotta
them,
see the nuts.
I'm not hiring him.
Firmly grasp them.
When Theo got to the Cubs, he said in 5 years, did he say we'll win or be in the World Series?
I think he
I
said
don't remember.
Pretty sure he just said be in. And he got 5 years. Obviously, they won. What a call. But pretty much in all aspects of GMs for any sport, I think if you're giving someone less than 5 years, you really didn't give them much of a chance. I've been consistent with that, talking about like the Lions and Browns and Cardinals and teams that just constantly have turnover and don't know what the fuck they're doing. The Red Sox not giving people 5 years, you can't, like, that's where I blame the front office. Like, if every once in a while Henry just said, hey, shut the fuck up, like, just wait, I would respect him so much more. So much more. And then Kennedy going out there and being like, oh, the goal is to win World Series. Like, it doesn't seem that way from his specific office. Like, that's where I understand that's probably the goal, but it has for sure been pushed down. And they go through waves. Oh, now it's the Penguins' turn. Now it's Liverpool's turn. Now it's auto racing's turn. Now it's baseball's turn. Like, it sucks. You could do all of them. I'm positive. They have really nothing to do with one another. But it's just like, if you're not going to give a guy like a full tenure, none of the guys you drafted can drink yet. That's where it's like, did you really give him a shot?
You were that close to Chaim and some of his pieces finally getting to the point where they were going to be in the big leagues, right? Like, or even develop to the point that they were tradable assets, right? Like Nick York getting to AA. First season at AA, did his thing. It's been a solid year for him. There's some real value there. I don't know. I think when you look at Chaim Bloom and you talk about the philosophy change, this is just what you have to expect with this ownership group. And it's not fun. It's a reason to dislike them and not be happy. But damn well, in 3 or 4 years, we're going to see a similar thing just to this again. How many times are they going to do it to you? You can only go through the cycle so many fucking times before you look like an idiot. It's just they are going to flip the minute they feel either that the narrative is changing on them, that media is beating them up too good. And that's stupid because you don't get to see a full foundation plan like Bloom trying to be like the Dodgers, trying to be like the Braves and Astros that let this plan fully play out. You're just never going to get a chance of that in Boston right now.
I'm going to ask you guys a question. I want you to hold that thought because Jake's going to tell us about Blue Moon. But before we get to the Blue Moon read, I'm going to ask you this question. Was firing Chaim Bloom something that happened too soon? Are you confident that the Red Sox are now headed in the right direction? Or is the answer a combination of both? Jake, take it away.
Playoffs are just around the corner, so it's time to help your team out by sticking to your lucky rituals, like the ritual of enjoying an ice-cold Blue Moon while the game is on. Blue Moon was born in a ballpark, first brewed at Coors Field in Denver, Colorado. Make it your one-of-a-kind baseball tradition whether you're at the park or watching from home. Tyler will be spared right here because he has to wake up at 4 a.m. tomorrow to get absolutely destroyed all day on his own radio program. So if you want to hear any of that, tune in to 98.5 The Sports Hub tomorrow and pour out a Blue Moon for Tyler. With its refreshing flavor with Valencia orange peel for a subtle sweetness and hints of coriander, Blue Moon Belgian-style wheat ale is a one-of-a-kind beer that's made brighter. It's carefully crafted and full-flavored with refreshing notes and a smooth, creamy finish. Blue Moon was brewed by baseball to give you a dose of nostalgia and get you excited for the new season. Why strike out with the same old beer when you can get something one-of-a-kind? Its bold flavor, bright color, and iconic orange slice ritual guarantee a one-of-a-kind beer experience perfect for spring weather. Best served with its signature orange garnish to showcase its beautiful bright color. A beer this good only comes around once in a blue moon, but you can enjoy it all season long. Brighten up your baseball traditions with Blue Moon Belgian-style wheat ale. It's one of a kind every time. Check out shop.bluemoonbrewingcompany.com for baseball merch and visit get.bluemoonbeer.com/Jared to find Blue Moon delivery options. That's get.bluemoonbeer.com/Jared. Blue Moon, made brighter. Celebrate responsibly. Blue Moon Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado Ale.
Thank you, Jake. Okay, so answer the question. The Red Sox was firing Chaim Bloom something that was premature? Are the Red Sox headed in the right direction, or can both be true?
I can't say they're heading in the right direction yet. There's too many unknowns there.
You
And
didn't take anything from what Sam Kennedy said today about like, I mean, he basically said like we're fucking like this. It's on now.
What's the hire?
Sure, but that's also like, again, Hanley and Pablo was one of their off seasons. That was their plan. Like who's to say they don't do that again? Like I'm high on Cody Bellinger. What if they give him a ton of money? They're like, we don't want to wait for Soto. We can get Bellinger for half. And then his back starts getting fucked up again. Again, it's a risk I would take, but if that's their only risk and then they don't like fix it next year, I can't say they're going in the right direction. I don't know that they think it was premature. I think they knew they were going to, and you can go back. You probably can't actually, but if that episode of Section 10 is still available, the day Chaim was hired, I said, I'm worried they just brought him here to fire him after they traded Mookie. And I still think that's why he got fired. If we didn't play the Dodgers at home this year, I don't know that Chaim gets fired. I'll be quite frank with everyone here.
It's interesting to watch the PR buildup that has been the last couple of weeks on that front, though, following the trade deadline and everything, where I don't know.
That's actually a great take.
It's the outlook for the season isn't drastically
If the Red Sox play
disappointing.
the Dodgers at Dodger Stadium instead of Fenway, is Chaim still employed? That's a great question.
I think honestly, yeah. Like genuinely, yes.
Because we do know that they act emotionally sometimes. Like I think if it's a situation where they felt publicly embarrassed or nationally embarrassed, it's like here comes the Mookie shit again. And we're the laughing stock of baseball for a whole week, trotted out on national television. Like, all right, well, gotta fire the guy that did it then.
Well, I think they also thought they had more public support on the Mookie trade. They thought they had sewered him enough where people thought he was a greedy fuck. And people aren't that, like, some people are that stupid. Most aren't. So that's where I think they thought they had won that PR battle and didn't.
Yeah.
But it's hard for me to sit here 3.5, 4 years removed and think I was wrong. Like, I genuinely believe he was hired to trade Mookie and then would have ultimately be blamed for it because that's not a winnable trade for anyone. Could it have been a better trade if David Price wasn't involved? Probably, but who knows?
Definitely. Definitely. Coley.
But also maybe not. Like, what if it was Gavin Lux? He's played one season since then at the big league level. He was a utility guy the first year.
Got hurt.
And he got hurt this year. Yeah.
But he was supposed to be
that's
their
where it's
starting
like,
Gavin
he's
Lux
supposed to be really good. But even who's the Dustin May? Dustin May's been in and out too.
Yeah.
So like if you got those two guys just for Mookie and they've been hurt the whole time, that doesn't help you either.
No.
It's even a name. What Tony Gonsolin was with the package they ended up doing was one of the main names. He blew his elbow out.
Yep. And I still
so like there's
Brusdar Gratterall also. I'm not high on that guy anyway.
That was the Minnesota aspect of it that I was so furious when Brusdar got rerouted. I was so furious.
Rerouted.
But it's
the
like
Dodgers are like, we'll take him too.
Yeah, it was like how much are they going to win this trade by? Like it's insane. Yeah. But you hire a guy and you hire him under the premise that he will be trading Marcus Lynn Betts. You are not setting that guy up for success. That's where it's like, I really feel like he was really good because look at how much he accomplished since then. And I know people are like, what, last place? Yeah. But look at the minor league system. Like there's talent there. Whether or not it ever plays for this team, you can do shit with it.
But then people will just hear that and say, all right, then go be a fucking minor league coordinator then. Like you have to build up the big league roster too. You can't just build up the farm system.
And that's where you look at this year where you have all the tools to do that. And you say, well, 2021, you did that, right? 2021, you got to the ALCS. Last year was 78 games. This year, you're like 500. And you weren't using all your money. You didn't go over the luxury tax or whatever.
21, I mean, you basically got there because of all the pieces before Chaim anyway, though.
There was Bloom put the outsides of that roster together. It is so unfair to say that. Like, I hate that comment saying like Bloom doesn't deserve any credit for 2021 or whatever.
He doesn't deserve
but the same people who say that shit are the ones crying about the Hunter Renfroe trade. Like the same people who say that are like, how could you trade Hunter Renfroe?
Guys.
They were selling little Poppy shirts at Dick's Sporting Goods, Jared. That was a Chaim guy. Listen, this is where it comes down for Chaim for me. I know. I'm not going to hang my hat on Nick Pivetta.
Big postseason innings, and he pitched that fucking last inning before you got in. Who did Cora cite as the three main rotation pieces for why they went to the playoffs in 2021? Eddie, Nate, and Pivetta making 30 starts.
Hansel Robles.
Listen.
0 ERA in September.
Listen. when and I know Tyler can name the prospect because he's a sicko. Jared might know it, but it might take him a while. I think us three are like 3 of the 7 people on Earth who can name the prospect who was traded for Kyle Schwarber.
Yep.
And people fucking hated that trade. People were furious at that trade because he was injured at the time.
Number 8 prospect in the system.
Yeah. And he was hitting a grand slam every other at bat in that playoff run. Like it was absurd. And I honestly, they lose to the Braves. If one thing doesn't happen, people are going to think I'm going to blame the umpire. I'm not. If Eddie doesn't do that shit, the Astros were dead until Eddie did that to Correa. They were dead. And that's why Eddie's not here anymore.
Yeah. Could be.
That's Himes. He was doomed from the start. He walked in with a red dot on his chest and they never took it off him. Then they pulled the trigger today.
Do you want the prospect?
Yeah.
Aldo
Ramirez.
Yeah. Who still has I think he threw like an inning when he got there and then his elbow just exploded. It was like there was dynamite waiting. Bloom sent him with
Jeter,
a fucking TNT.
Remember Anderson Espinosa?
Oh, well,
don't even get me started.
Drew Pomeranz. Oh, hey, it's okay. We don't want anything in return, even though you fucking gave us fucked medicals. It's good. It's cool. We'll keep the deal. We're happy with it.
Yeah,
but with
that
the
wasn't Heim.
No, I'm speaking about.
I know you're not saying it's not, but people need to be reminded. Like Dombrowski, we celebrated the 2018 World Series like a team that's never won anything. You give out stupid fucking contracts to guys because you're emotional, and that's fucked us ever since. And I'm not upset that those guys got paid because those guys got paid under the premise that we're the Boston Red Sox. We pay everybody. Then all of a sudden, this is why I truly get mad about the luxury tax, not because it's a cheap pop, but because they did it to themselves. Like Henry was the one who had to approve both Evaldi and Chris Sale's deals. He could have said, "Wait a minute, what about our better players? What about Mookie Betts? Shouldn't he be a priority? What about Xander? Shouldn't we not give him a slapdick contract that he can opt out of like every year?" Like, where were they then? That's where it's like, yeah, you can blame Dombrowski, you can blame Heim. It's ownership. End of the day, they're still here. That's why it's hard for me to be like a lot of optimism.
Yeah, I do throw, and I agree overall, like when it came to Chris Sale, I was reading through these reports the other day. John Henry and them did not want to give out that extension. That's really what frayed the relationship, was that they didn't want to do it. And then David Dombrowski was like, "You're going to fucking do it." And eventually they caved to him and was like, "All right, fuck it. Like, you did just win a World Series." And then, 2019 plays out the way it does. That is the misconception that bothers me. And along with the farm system, listen, just because Tristan Casas, Ceddanne Raffaello, whoever you want to name, Brian Bayo, we're all in the system in 2019 doesn't mean the farm system was good. At that time, right. You got to realize in order to make deals, these prospects have to move up rankings. They have to be notable. They were 30th because they had just entered the friggin' organization. So when you don't have those tools and those assets to make deals, that's where you get stuck. Credit to Heim for holding on to those guys and trying to give it time over those years. Say what you want about him picking the right guys. So far, has he not picked the right prospects outside of Bobby Delbick? Like, it's fair to be upset about Bobby Delbick. He didn't trade Jarren Duran. He waited on Brian Bayo, Tristan Casas. Like, the reality is if Dombrowski's probably here, those guys are all traded to try and supplement or extend what that window was. That's where some of that stuff bothers me and upsets me, because you got to give Bloom credit for holding on to these pieces and letting that farm system develop into what it is today. It doesn't happen overnight. You don't just wake up and, Dombrowski left you with all this shit. No, he didn't. He left you with seeds, and you need to let the seeds grow for friggin' 4 years.
It's fair. It's fair. So now what? I think that was my first. I mean, the fact that Sam Kennedy sat up there during the press conference where he's addressing the Chaim Bloom firing and immediately just pissed all over the Theo fire, just being like, Theo, not a chance, dude. No fucking way.
Jared,
anyways,
do you hear me?
We're not telling you who it is, but it's definitely not that guy. And it's just like, fuck. Like, that's why I mean, you can't put the bullet back in the gun. But
listen,
I said,
would it be crazy? Theo's done crazier if he was actually wearing a Sam Kennedy skin suit. If that was actually Theo, he's done stranger.
He's done crazy things.
Does anyone have any film of this presser earlier today? I've yet to see it.
Yeah, check it out.
Looking a little loose. Let's
Okay. Now let's start connecting dots here, though. A couple days ago. Now, there's still been no validity to this, and I thought there would be some reporting that Steve, they posted that picture of Theo just like on, what is that, the T? Is that a train? I don't understand any of those systems. Whatever that boxed underground car was.
Of him down on the field after. He was like on the field at Fenway.
Okay.
Yeah.
There was no reporting anyone did to just like try to get like, oh, I know he works for MLB, but like you think there'd be a little follow up just because there's nothing interesting to talk about with the Red Sox before this firing, and there was none. So maybe Theo was in the area. Maybe he was getting the skin suit ready. Maybe he was looking at Sam Kennedy to get the details down. You know, when you make a skin suit, you have to see them in person. That's how you carry it.
That really chapped my ass today because I'm not saying it needed
you.
I'm not saying that it was Theo or bust or anything like that, but at least tease me. At least let me go into the offseason thinking that there's a fucking chance. It was like Sam Kennedy went up there and he was like, anyways, we fired Chaim Bloom today. We're definitely not replacing him with Theo Epstein. Thank you for your time. So that was the press conference. That was the press conference. It was crazy.
It was like they told you that just so they could then on the other side be like, I don't know who you heard that from. That's not fucking happening.
Yeah. They're like, not a chance. Theo? Oh.
It's like, listen, we know you guys are excited Chaim's gone. Because I do think, what do you think right now, not in the future, right now, what was Chaim's favorability score yesterday?
Is that out of 100?
Yes, that's how percentages work.
Okay.
With the fan base or the organization?
The fan base. 30%?
30 was the number I was going to go with.
I was going to be somewhere like in the 50s to 60s. No?
I think we get used to Red Sox Twitter, which still has its, issues. But listen to friggin' sports radio, I don't think I've heard a supportive Chaim Bloom caller in 4 years.
Right. Anytime I say anything positive about him, I get attacked. So it's just like, I don't know that it was maybe 40, maybe 30 is a bit tough. But I think they already had a win with the majority of the fan base. And that's where it's like, maybe they are talking to Theo, but Theo's an interesting fella. Like if they don't want to, he's kind of like a woodland creature. You don't want to spook him. You got to get up to him real nice and careful.
Yeah, they're playing hard to get. They're like, anyway, so we have no interest in Theo.
Fuck that guy.
unless you try, no? like I feel like that's got to be the move because Theo ain't coming back here to prove anything. I think he wants to be part of an ownership group. I know John Henry loves it. It lined up too much. Like, oh, we want to get back to the old Red Sox ways. All right, well then do it with the guy that represented the old Red Sox ways. Oh, well, Theo is working in the league office and, he wants to be a part of an ownership group. Well, guess what? He doesn't have billions of dollars to buy the Red Sox outright. So how about make him a part of the Red Sox ownership group and be aligned with John Henry, who he did have a good relationship with. Like John Henry, as we mentioned before, when Theo Epstein, I saw that someone was saying that the other day. Theo Epstein's not just going to come back to the place that he left. He literally did that here. He left the Red Sox and came back. And he came back because John Henry brought him back. He was like, fuck this. Like, we need John Henry. He saw one Ben Cherington, Jed Hoyer trade. And he was like, fuck this. Like, I'm getting Theo back. So
a good trade, no less.
Great trade. Championship trade. It was a championship trade. Traded for the ALCS and World Series MVP of the same year.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And one of them was a throw-in.
Yeah.
When you floated Theo, my initial reaction was like being a Star Wars fan, like this is just fan service. Like, but then I sat with it a little bit because people would come themselves if they got Theo. People would be like, oh, we're winning the next 10 World Series. Maybe you would. But then I sit on it and I'm like, Theo truly wouldn't come back unless he believed the farm system was like ready to go. Like he wouldn't come back to rebuild from scratch. He would come back if it was just like, oh, I've seen this before. This is great. This is perfect.
But I don't know. It just really, it hurts my feelings.
Sam Kennedy was like, Jared's a moron.
Yeah. I mean, I was careful about it. I said, it's a 1% shot, but it's not 0%. And now
even McAdam followed it up the last couple days. I think on Fenway Rundown, he goes, I don't think it's going to happen right now, but one day the door's open. Like that is a thing that's remaining in the air to some level. There is a interest. It's probably just not the right timing right now,
I guess. But again, it's going to come back to ownership. Like if you want to be part of an ownership group, we also need your weird brain to run this fucking team. Like you can do both. They'd have to pay him a fuck ton of money, but
it's also a loss of control on their part. And they are
Right.
they scared of that narrative? Theo, we know who Theo is. Theo's not going to give a fuck to some degree. If he gets to the point where he's like, fuck you guys, I don't fuck with you, then the secrets really start leaking out. When you have Sam Kennedy, when you have Sam Kennedy, the puppet, to do what you want to do, that's an awesome thing, right? Go be the yes man, go dance in front of everyone and play this party so John Henry doesn't have to show up. When Theo's there and shit hits the fan, we know how that goes.
They're such a leak-proof organization to begin with. I've heard, or I read, someone tweeted out that Anthopoulos only has 1 year left with the Braves. Is that true?
I thought I saw that as well.
Because that's a move that would genuinely get me excited. If only to re-sign our young players like before they're worth $45 million a year.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, 1 year left.
Yeah, 1 year. They extended it. But that's the kind of move we could all sit here and say, all right, you fired Chaim for him. I get it. Like no one's going to argue. Everyone's going to say, all right, that was the right move. But like I said, if it ends up being another guy who is learning the job, is kind of starting from a beginning again, it just feels like you're moving laterally. You're not, wait, is lateral to the side? Horizontally.
Yes.
You're not moving forward. You're not taking that step up. There's really only two names I think that fit that category right now.
And they are?
As I mentioned, Chris Antonetti, like that's a guy that you put at that level. James Click, I think you could argue. Now listen, friggin' Chaim Bloom wrote the dude's recommendation to get into the Brave or into the Rays organization. They were writing a baseball prospectus together, but you can say James Click, he's dealt with a bitchy owner who doesn't know how to act, was able to win a World Series doing it, spent time in Houston, hopefully picked up some things there as well, and won a World Series. He's Chaim Bloom, but just accomplished more. Also walked into a way better situation.
I know it won't happen because A, it's not going to happen. B, people wouldn't even be excited about it. It's still Preller in San Diego, right?
Correct.
Yes.
He traded like most teams, like if you took their best prospects ever and put them in a room, he traded all of them for Soto and they still have a really good farm system. And he's like, I'm sure agents love seeing his fucking number pop up right now. They're like, oh, this guy has no idea what money costs. Like he'll pay us $1 billion.
The Xander Bogaerts contract. Like, who the fuck is ever going to do something like that?
Listen, they offered Aaron Judge that exact amount. He said no, and they were like, well, we got to give it to someone.
Trey Turner told him to fuck off too.
Right. Like we simply must pay somebody this amount of money. We don't really care who. Like if Xander had just re-signed with us, they would have given that. Who else was up? Like I guess Swan Dansby. Dansby would have been a quarter billionaire. He would have got $300 million. Like that's exactly, they would have. They would have just moved it on down the line.
Took that money. Like easily Dansby gets $250 with the Padres.
No doubt. And it probably goes up, because there's less guys. Yeah. It goes up with everyone. Eventually Carlos Rodon gets like $750 for 3 years.
Yeah.
I'm not even joking. Again, they're playing this more PR wise than anything else. But Preller checks a lot of boxes. I have no idea if he's available. Like I assume the Padres aren't going to fire him.
You don't want Preller.
He's operating. Listen, I don't want to be having this conversation, but here we are.
You don't want Preller like that.
Do you believe in the big league team building? Like, do you see that as successful the way that's played out, or do you blame that more on the players?
No,
I don't blame. Like, that's the thing. You can look at teams that buy. You can look at teams that sold. You could point to two teams that did the exact same thing I'm just talking the deadline. You could point to two teams that did the exact same thing. One of them worked. One of them didn't. Like the idea that the Mets and the Padres were the first two teams to invent spending in an offseason is insane to me. Like, that's just not how I watched the Yankees in 2009 only spend, and they won a World Series immediately. Haven't won since, but they won that one. The same, like they gave AJ Burnett way more money than he should have gotten. They gave CC Sabathia a deserved contract, but they went out and got that guy. Was that the same Teixeira offseason?
I was about to say,
had to have been. Yeah, they spent. That was like
took them out of your hands.
$500 million. Which thankfully, but it was worth it because they won the ring. It's like people are going to shy away from that. And if the Red Sox are looking at that and saying, this is our chance to strike, I'm all for that. But I still think I'm capable of doing that is my ultimate, what I always come back to.
So I do have a concern about this upcoming offseason, and it kind of plays off of that. But first, we're in the heat of the summer, and you need a pair of great shades that you don't have to baby. Knockaround Sunglasses is the go-to for quality polarized shades that won't break the bank. Plus, they just released their first set of teams for their official MLB collection, including the Red Sox and the Yankees. I believe the Red Sox lost. Yes, Jake?
Lost.
Big fat L for the Red Sox, but you can still get your Yankee sunglasses if you want to. Don't be the person that's squinting into the sun or worried about getting sand on their overpriced sunglasses. Check out knockaround.com for great looking polarized shades starting at just $28. Use the promo code ROCKET and that'll get you free shipping on your order. Here's my concern. And I was saying this to my dad because my dad was like, what's the deal with this Yamamoto guy? And who's the other pitcher that you like? And I was like, Giolito. We're talking about like the free agent market or whatever. He's like, oh, so like the Red Sox are obviously pissed off. They fired Chaim Bloom, so like they're about to have a monster offseason. And I said, in theory, yes, but here's my concern. There are multiple teams that just had embarrassing seasons that have a lot of fucking money. The Padres, the Mets, the Yankees. And that's just the teams that had embarrassing years. The Dodgers are a team that just got under the luxury tax.
Right.
So they're going to be spending as well. So when you talk about Yamamoto, how does he not end up in Boston? You've got the Yoshida connection. The Red Sox just fired Chaim Bloom. That means that they're pissed off and they're going to change direction. They're going to spend all this money. Well, guess what? The Padres, they just make up money. They have no idea. They just like Yamamoto. How's 600 million sound? I don't know. Is that fair? They don't fucking know. They have no idea what they're doing. The Yankees, they're going to miss the playoffs for the first time in like 30 years. So they're going to spend like assholes. And the Mets, Steve Cohen doesn't know what fucking money is. He just, whatever. He spent like $6 billion on like a stick at an art museum because he just, whatever. Like that's what you're going up against. Either. And then the Dodgers, they have more money than God too. So like as nice as the theory sounds as, oh, the Boston Red Sox, they're pissed off again. They're going to try and be the Red Sox again. So clearly you go after the number one pitcher on the market and you're going to do this and that. All right, cool. But you're going to be going up against some recklessly spending baseball teams. And maybe it's fair to say that some of those teams are more desirable destinations than Boston right now. Like if you're a premier talent, would you rather play for the Red Sox or the Dodgers? Would you rather play for the Red Sox or the Padres? Would you rather play for the Red Sox or I mean, I guess like the Mets and Yankees are kind of in the same conversation right now. But yeah, there are more desirable geographic locations. There are more desirable locations in terms of where that team is from their window being open. That's what you're up against. So that's my concern is as nice as it sounds that, oh, ownership's pissed. So now it's about to go down. Cool. It's about to go down in a lot of other places too.
I think with Yamamoto, where I sit there, and this was my take last episode, and I know some people didn't like it. There's no excuse for you financially not to be wherever everybody else is. If he picks one of these other places like Ohtani, you prefer the West Coast, what the fuck are you supposed to do? That's baseball. But this front office, especially if you're making this move right now, there's enough options on the market for you to piece this rotation together. Even if Yamamoto tells you to fuck off, there's no excuse. You just fired Chaim because you didn't feel like he had the conviction to make big moves. So guess what? Find a fucking way. Is that Aaron Nola? Cool. I'll take Aaron Nola. I like Aaron Nola. Blake Snell, I have some concerns, but if it's some combination of that, you better be all the way out. And even if we're talking trading, if it means the difference between you being a legit World Series contender, like you're saying, all right, then you have to move some chips in and make a fucking trade. Like, that's it. There's no excuse for your team not to be there. It's simply what you're willing to do with this front office. Don't give me all this bullshit that you don't believe Chaim could do it. You want to leak little, fucking stories left and right for 12 months. Whoever the fucking people in that front office who were willing to talk and give shit to June Lee. Cool. All right. Well, now here we are. Now there's no excuse for you. You have to make that move. I love Yamamoto. I do. But I think if you're sitting there and I'd be disappointed too when he signs or if he signs elsewhere, but it's an easy way out for them. They don't deserve that way out, and there's no reason for them to have it. There's other ways to get this pitching staff where it needs to be.
I'm not as concerned about the Yankees, like Jared mentioned, only because they'll sign one guy, and that's it. That's kind of what they've been doing. Hal's still a moron. it drives Cashman insane. Like they'll sign one of those guys and then re-sign like Glaber or something. That's what they'll do. I don't really view them. And the Mets, they just kind of brought in, like you guys were saying, Chaim as well. So I don't necessarily know. I can see them being, I think they're actually the Corbin Burns landing spot. I know that's pretty easy connection to draw, but they did just get 2 prospects that they probably don't give much of a fuck about. 2 good prospects that they can just ship right to Milwaukee for Corbin Burns, make that pretty easy, and then just re-sign him that way. The Dodgers, I think, and I know they're capable of doing more than one thing at once, but I imagine they're still going all in on Ohtani, and I imagine the Padres are kind of thinking the same thing. And where I'm okay with if Ohtani goes to the Padres, I think that's only a win for the Red Sox because there's no way they get Ohtani and also Soto and also Fernando, who I'll never let go of that dream, not never. So if Ohtani goes to one of those places, I think that immediately makes the Red Sox an interesting landing spot for either Soto or Fernando. And I mean, I've been pretty with Chaim, without Chaim, you got to get 2 of the top 3 arms available. If Yamamoto's one of them, cool. If Nola's one of them, cool. If Snell's one of them, cool. You got to get 2 of them because this rotation's not good enough to not have to add 2 of them. And if you want to get a Giolito on top of that to round out your rotation, even better. But you need to go get 2 frontline starters, and I'd prefer them to be free agents. It's been made more difficult by Julio Urias being a fucking asshole because he would have been a prime candidate too to get a lot of money, and now he's going to be coming in for relief for Bauer over in Japan. So that's a tough scene. But in terms of guys that aren't pieces of shit that are available, there's still plenty of them, and there really isn't an excuse. There's also where I'm still hesitant to start trading guys, especially for pitchers. There's the next offseason, which I still would like to be in on Soto, but there's a lot more arms coming right behind that too. So I'm ardently sticking to my guns, like just spend the money. You have money coming off the books. That sale money we were talking about in 2 years, that's off the books regardless. So that's clearing some space. I think Pedroia is still getting paid. That's coming off the books soon. Like there's money
Manny's
coming
still
off
getting
the
paid.
books. Manny's going to be paid long after I'm dead and won't cash a single one of those checks. He has no idea he's getting paid.
No.
I think
I
think I saw someone had the number today, even with Verdugo and I think it's Pavetta's arbitration numbers. They should be like around 160 or 170, like right in that ballpark. Like you have fucking money. That's before even getting to the luxury tax. I think where things get tricky.
Verdugo ain't going to be here, I don't think.
Yeah, I agree with you on that.
That's the one where they waited too long to trade. I'm not even concerned about the other guys. Like Bobby, I'm sure a lot of people around other teams, there were only so many stupid teams. Other teams were probably like, yeah, the barrel rate's nice. We'll give you a 30th ranked prospect. I'm sure there was never any real deal for Bobby Dahlbeck.
Fair question to be had. And the K rate was always fucking disgusting. He still strikes out at 30% in AAA. Nice that he hits all these homers. Good for him. But with the Dodgers,
why do you hate Bob?
Because he sucks.
You fucking suck.
I do suck.
You
but
fucking suck.
Yeah.
Who said I sucked? But he sucks as well.
Jake, call Bobby Dahlbeck right now.
Don't call him. Jake, please. Don't call him. Please. He's a good looking dude, but he strikes out
He's
too
a
much.
great guy.
He's
I
a
bet
great
he is.
All-around great guy.
Would you like me to lie? Coley, is Bobby Dahlbeck a good baseball player?
Yes.
He's so much better than any of us.
No,
Yeah.
we don't count amongst professional baseball players in the MLB.
He's very good.
Of all the people who are in this universe
No,
that
we're
Jared's
not doing the
constructed, he's the
universe
best
shit.
baseball player. The other one's Pat Light, and Bobby had way more success at the big league level.
Way more.
I put them in a similar F tier. Bobby Dahlbeck's probably one
No,
above.
that's
them.
insane.
Probably
That
one
is-
above. Bobby Dahlbeck had a nice 2 months. Good for him. Good for him.
Bobby Dahlbeck was the best hitter in the American League for the second half of a baseball season. Pat Light was the worst relief pitcher to ever play the game.
A tier above, as I said.
The entire time.
But both, where's Bobby Dahlbeck going to be 3 years
You
from
want to
now?
talk about peaks and valleys. Pat Light's career, the entire career was a valley.
Yeah, he never peaked. Double A was fun for Pat Light. Pat Light was tearing it up in Double A.
Yeah, we know.
Okay.
You got shit-faced to tell him all about it.
Hey, listen, I care about Pat. But you talk about the Dodgers, right? Like the Dodgers, they try to get under the luxury tax.
Literally grabbed Pat Light by the shoulders. I believed in you.
I did.
Believed in you. You did, yeah.
Because and listen, not all my takes are going to be right. I'm willing to admit that.
Had a lot of
I put my faith in Pat. I didn't know he was an alcoholic. Where was the scout?
What?
That was on Sox prospects.
Pat?
Yes.
He's a bar owner.
They don't have that feature on Sox prospects. Talk to them.
I mean, it is what it is,
I will say with Yamamoto, what scares me is the Billy Epler thing, where he's built a really strong connection dating back to Ohtani when he was in LA over in Japan.
Yeah.
He shares the same agent, obviously signed Kodai Senga recently. They're going to have the same agent, him and Yamamoto. Is there a connection there? Because it seems like the Mets are willing to spend on pitching. That's the one thing. And I think even their version of a step back is going to be a lot different than people realize. So I don't know. I don't want to give the Red Sox any outs for this offseason. I refuse to do it.
Well, that's the thing. If they go out and sign nobody, it's almost funnier. Like, it sucks for us to have to watch 162 shitty games. But if they have kind of the same offseason they've been having with just a new guy like that, I don't know what's gonna get the fan base to the point I need them to be at. But they a terrible offseason would certainly do it.
Easily. At this point, people are expecting fireworks. They put all the fucking pressure on them.
Jake, we haven't heard from you much this podcast. What was your take on the Chaim Bloom firing? Where are you at right now?
What the fuck are you doing, Tyler?
If Jared's not going to say it and Coley's not going to say it, so I'll say it. Jake, you look great. I like your new camera.
I already said it on a previous podcast, but anyway.
What about this podcast?
Swing and a miss.
I think
Jake, did I not compliment your fucking camera?
Yeah, we talked about it earlier.
Yeah,
on
it was
this pod?
No, he had it for Baseball is Dead. It was one of the first things I said when I saw him. I was like, that camera looks incredible.
How dare I show appreciation?
I think Jake looks incredible through every camera I've ever seen him. So I didn't think I needed to point out the obvious.
Yeah.
Like, hey, Jake, the sun's going to come out tomorrow. I just wanted to let you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, my thoughts though, like, just as a Red Sox fan the last 3 years or 4 years, like, one of my biggest concerns is just that ownership was indifferent. And like, I feel like as a sports fan, like, your owners not caring about winning is like just the most scary thing you can do, because there's just nothing you can do about it. But I just feel like this, like, even if he just ends up being a scapegoat and they're hiding behind him as like, oh, now we're going to change and all this, like, I still do like the direction of where they're going. And I am hopeful that they'll start spending now.
It really is like being in a toxic relationship where, like, your partner, like, you've been together for so long and they just like stop caring. Like, they stop doing all the things that they used to do to impress you or whatever. And then you've got to like be like, all right, well, I'm going to start going to the gym. And then they're like, why are you trying to look good? You trying to like leave me? You trying to improve yourself so that you can leave me? And then that's basically what happened with the fan base. They're like, all right, then we'll just stop fucking going to the games. We'll stop watching. They'll see the ratings go down. They'll see the ticket sales go down. They'll see the attendance go down. And it's like, oh, fuck, I got to be better. Let's fire Chaim Bloom and let's spend a bunch of money. Like, the fans more or less had to say, hey, we're not going to fucking deal with this. Was firing Chaim Bloom the right response to that? I don't know. I don't know. But it got a reaction, did it not? Like, this was an emotional response to say we care still. I go back to the winter weekend asking John Henry to his face. You know, you've got the Pittsburgh Penguins, you've got Liverpool. Do you still care about the Boston Red Sox? And he took offense to that question. I think it was a fair question, but he took offense to it. And that was the start of this year. So I don't know. We got an emotional response from the ownership, and this is the situation we find ourselves in. What were you going to say, Tyler?
I think I forgot.
I want Rhys Hoskins too.
That's a nice buy low deal, but I feel like that's, who knows? Maybe if they bring in someone along the lines of Bloom to be that guy, it can happen, right? But
I would pay him. No, like, speed's not the reason you're ever paying Rhys Hoskins. He's one of the most consistent hitters in baseball the last 7 years. He tore his ACL. He'll be fine.
Swing built for Fenway.
If I would give him the exact contract Dombrowski gave Schwarber, pretty much, and just make him my DH for the next 4 years.
And then what do you do with Yoshida?
We have so many bigger problems than Yoshida. My other, if we don't get Hoskins, there's a guy I want, and man, oh man, would it piss off people who don't understand anything about anything.
Whit Merrifield.
If the Red Sox,
I want Whit Merrifield.
So I think same team. Matt Chapman is going to be available. And if people are going to talk about the defense, move Devers to DH. Oh, you can't pay a DH that much. Not $1, not one of them was given to Rafael Devers for his glove.
That's
literally
true.
zero of the dollars of his contract for his glove. Put him at DH. If you want, now all of a sudden you've got Story Chapman on the left side of your infield. You've got whatever's going on at second base. Casas will not be like third and third worst and now it's above average next year. Like there's no doubt in my mind he'll be much better. Now you've got yourself quite an infield. And now Yoshida, balls aren't even going to reach Yoshida because of what you've put in the left side of the infield with Chapman and Story. So yeah, if you want to improve, now when I look at those two lineups, I literally wrote them out just to see how I like them. And I also assume like Rafael is going to be in center or fucking somewhere.
Right field. Right field.
Well, either way, like the defense will be improved. If you have Chapman there, your offense is going to be very streaky, like super streaky, like 1 through 9 streaky. If you get Hoskins there, you're maybe the best offense in baseball, and also like
where are you putting Hoskins if you've got Devers at DH?
No, I'm saying you can only do one of them. You can't do both.
Got it.
I wonder if this is where, and I'm not saying I completely disagree because I do think, if you're just talking money, 5 years, Rafael Devers' contract will be considered a bargain, most likely compared to other deals that are out there as we watch all these guys fucking shatter contracts. But from a PR standpoint, will they look at it and say, well, we have Devers, our $300 million guy at DH. Is that something they're willing to handle? And I'd go and look at what Cora said. Cora said recently, as long as I'm here, Rafael Devers is my third baseman.
And I don't think that they would take Devers off third base year 2 of like a fucking whatever it was 11-year deal. It would just look bad. It would look like they're like, we kind of fucked that one up. Like we traded Mookie when we should have paid him. We should have gotten Xander on a 6-year deal before the Padres sniffed fucking crack in the bathroom and signed him for 11 years. And we paid Devers for 11, and now we're moving him to DH in year 2 of an 11-year deal.
If they keep being concerned about the optics, they're never going to succeed.
I agree.
Like,
That's the cycle you're running with them.
Ironically, you can't listen to like literally us, like the people talking right now. But again, zero of the dollars allocated to Devers were for his defense. Like not, if anything, it cost him money. So if you really want to fix a problem, because Chapman's going to get what, like 110 to 130, something like that. Like, put him there. Put him at third.
He'd probably get more than that. I mean, if Trevor Story got 140,
I don't think he will.
He's a platinum glover. He's going to get paid.
I understand. But like his bat, the stats posted the other day, like it's the streakiest bat in baseball by far. And it probably is only going to get worse.
If I told you to guess how many home runs Matt Chapman has this year, you'd be disappointed.
17?
It's like 15.
15. It's only a 112 OPS plus. He's above average, slightly above
he's not
average.
hitting free agency at a good time. And I understand he's a platinum glover. And it's one of those things, too, where I'm sure he's shit against righties. So if you wanted to play Devers at third, like platoon it a little bit, I don't love that idea if you're going to give him that kind of money. But if you want your defense fixed, that fixes it pretty immediately. With Rafael and Chapman out there, that's a much better defense.
I just think there's easier ways to fix it, I guess, in my opinion. I look at Devers and I look at this year and what he did last year. Last year, if that's what he is every year, you're happy with that. That's fine. That's all you need out of Rafael Devers. Just be competent. Just field the ball. And, Carlos Feblis, if you did something, you did your job, anything to get him to where he needs to be here. It worked before. What's the big difference this year? I'd love to know. Besides you falling asleep at third base after
Xander's not there. I genuinely believe it's.
Go ahead.
It's Xander not being there. When he was hanging his head in Houston, he needed someone to put his arm around his shoulder. Who did that the whole rest of Rafael Devers' career? It was Xander. Like
I think from a leadership standpoint, I do agree with you. Devers needs that. But now you have Story next to him. And I don't think it's a surprise that Devers' defense has been a lot better recently. Now that he has, someone who's competent playing next to him, not as much he has to worry about. But I think when you start to figure out this whole thing here, improving the defense, your defense is going to be better next year no matter what. Like the reality is Devers can't be this bad again, as long as you take care of the coaching staff the way it needs to be. Trevor Story playing every day, that takes legit.
You can't bank on that.
Yeah, you gotta. That's the team structure, right? And you sign someone who can play shortstop in a bad situation instead of Kike Hernandez. And when things go wrong, Bobby Dahlbeck makes a appearance at shortstop 2 weeks into the season.
Bob, stop.
Bob,
But
hashtag Bob stop.
yeah, hashtag
Jake,
Bob stop.
Jake, get Bob on the phone.
Please don't,
Why not?
because I don't want to get yelled at. Even though I'm
He's
spitting.
not going to yell at you.
You look at center
He's too
field,
nice
right?
of a guy.
He's
You
a very
should
nice guy.
consider Rafaela. If you need to improve your defense, he shouldn't be moved. That's what it is. And credit to him. He's looked good so far at the plate. He's doing better than I thought he would right off rip, even though he's striking out a lot still. If you need your defense to improve that much, Casas looks good. Cora said it yesterday. His defense, people aren't talking about that enough. So that's plugging a lot of the holes you already have here. You turn Yoshida into a DH and you use him kind of like JD Martinez. You send him out there 2 times a week. There's ways to make this work.
Put it like, to me, Yoshida has not been near negative enough for him to just move to DH immediately. Like, I don't see the rush there. And you can severely improve either your lineup or your defense just by keeping him in left. I think the worst thing you can do is move him to DH, honestly.
I'm curious defensively, but also his body and holding up, where it seems like, he got run down this year. The WBC coming over to the US is a lot of that.
Yeah.
I'd be curious how his body can just handle the grind, because it's a lot different here with the travel and everything and that whole side of it. Keeping him fresh, we've seen what a couple days off does for Yoshida. Is there a way where you can just balance it? Not saying he plays once a week out there, but similar to JD Martinez in 2018. You get a little taste out there a couple times a week, free it up. It allows the whole roster to turn over in a way that you like.
Yeah, I mean, I think he eventually becomes DH, but I don't. We won multiple World Series with Manny like barely paying attention out there. I can't put the stress on left field defense when we have larger problems, and I don't disagree. If Devers reverts back to last year, not as big of a problem. If Story stays healthy, even less of a problem. I think the 2 second base options right now that they have, fine. That's where it's like Rafael in center is big. And if you really just want to be like, hey, we're going to mash, Rhys Hoskins at DH is a better option to me than putting Yoshida there and then trying to find an outfielder. Like, unless you're getting Bellinger, because he'll also fix your defense. Like, you can put him in right. You can keep Rafael in center. That's just going to cost the most out of all these, I think.
I will say the Cody Bellinger thing has started to get my noodle wet a little bit. Just a little bit. I was never a big Cody Bellinger guy, especially this past offseason. I was pretty about him overall. But you're talking about basically a guy who's what you hoped Verdugo would one day turn into, but even better. It's just how consistently, and I know his spray chart overall, it doesn't fit Fenway super well. He's an athletic freak, and I love the fact that you could move him around to play first base and some other stuff. You get a little bit of that, crazy versatility that Bloom loved, and I think a lot of the more new age front office guys like. I think it's important that you can get Devers days off at the DH spot as well.
Sure.
I think that impacts it. I think him and Yoshida both could really use it. Casas at first place, go sit out there every day.
That's also the thing too. If you bring in Hoskins, he can spell Casas at first if it's a lefty pitcher. I know Casas doesn't have horrible splits or anything like that, but no one plays 162 either. So you can buy Devers days off by also getting Casas days off. Put Hoskins at first.
Big picture stuff. I don't know if I'm ready for it. Plenty of seats still available at Fenway Park, though. Buying tickets to your favorite events shouldn't be stressful. Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater near you with killer deals on last-minute tickets and their best price guarantee. You can stop stressing over tickets and start getting hyped for all the fun that you will have. How many games are left in the home schedule, Tyler? Do you know?
Just home games?
Yeah.
I know there's 15 left in the season. I got to look at it.
Yeah, well, it's not important. Forget planning months in advance. Game Time has deals on tickets right up to the day of the event. Get exclusive flash deals on tickets for football, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. The Game Time guarantee means that you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Get images of your seat before you buy so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. Buy tickets in a matter of seconds, 2 taps, and you are set. Tickets are sent directly to your phone so you never have to dig through your email. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the promo code Redacted for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, use the promo code Redacted for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. Do we give a fuck about the Stop and Shop look ahead?
No, the whole episode was a look ahead.
That's true. Who are they playing next? Do we even care?
Blue
Toronto,
Jays.
right?
Blue Jays.
Yeah.
We get to see Matt Chapman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, just
I
because
feel like he's hit some shots at Fenway.
it's Brian Bayo versus Jose Barrios, Chris Sale versus Chris Bassett, Nick Pivetta versus Hyun-Jin Ryu. Prediction, don't fucking care. I'm just gonna 1 out of 3. I don't care. Who fucking cares?
You know what?
What?
I'll go 2 out of 3
Oh,
and give me more Will Abreu homer. I'm going to get another Will Abreu homer. That's what I'm buying.
Okay. Jake?
I'll go sweep.
Okay. Sox sweep?
Red Sox, yeah.
Okay. Okay. Coley?
I kind of agree with Jake because this team's been so stupid all season. This would exactly be the time they sweep the Blue Jays when it no longer mattered at all.
Right. You should take the sweep. All right. You guys have any other thoughts?
I don't think it's crazy to think that Will Abreu might already be better than Alex Verdugo.
That's not a bad take. I mean,
It's not a bad
defensively, he had a fucking hose. He had a great play.
Awful send, but hose.
Awful send. Great throw. Cole, you have any final thoughts?
If Abreu and Manuel Valdez turn out to be really good, that's like the only trade Heim really made. It's like Christian Vasquez for those two. That's going to end up looking very funny. Yeah, if and when I'm named GM or Chief Baseball Officer, whatever the fuck the title is, my first move, I'm like, as much as I just said you can't blow up the farm, I'm calling the Dodgers. I'm offering everything we have and getting Mookie back. That's the first move.
When you mean
Everything.
when you say everything, like the whole
Dodgers
every player,
will tell you to fuck off.
Probably, but I think if they may consider it.
no longer have a AAA or a AA team.
Listen, if they fucking in 1921 were like, hey, you know what? We'll give you $250 for Babe. We just need him back. We realize the error of our ways. We'll double 2.5x that price for you. That's like $4 billion in today's money. Things go differently. There's still time to fix that because that at the end of the day, that's still what we're talking about. The Mookie Betts trade has put us in this hole. Heim couldn't climb out of it. No one could. Now the next guy gets to try. Good luck.
I'd argue Heim did climb out of it. He was just got his head above the water and breathing like this. Just got to that point, but they pushed him right back under.
He got to the top of the water and a speedboat fucking cracked his skull in half. And they said next.
Jake's takes.
I think Tyler earlier said that he didn't know what a train was, and we kind of glossed over that. So I hope people
underground train
heard that.
That's exactly what happened. That's exactly.
Yeah. So you can let him know on Twitter if
he was on one of those boxes. You know what I mean? Under the ground. He was on one of those things
with the whales. Jake, cut that out.
No, only post that. Leave out the rest of the show.
That's the only clip we put out. Tyler doesn't know what a train is.
Not a big train guy. I had a traumatizing moment when I was younger.
Oh, do tell.
It was after a Red Sox game, and I was, I was young. I was probably 14, 15 years old.
Sure.
And I was lollygagging with my friends. We were fucking around. It's like 1 a.m. This fucking lady's holding her kid. And she's like, can you stop screaming in front of my child? And I turned around and I was scared. I was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. But my friend stepped in and said, fuck you and your child. And that was how it went, basically. And we
that's
sat
why you
down.
don't like trains?
No, it was a really bad moment.
Shut
up, Puff.
Shut up, Puff. I feel like you've shouted out Puff before.
It's my guy. It's my boy.
Yeah. All right. We'll be back after the Blue Jays series. I don't know why, but we will.
Someone might be hired by then.
Yeah, maybe we have a new general manager, baseball, whatever the fuck. They'll probably make up some stupid at. They'll be like, oh, fucking Emperor of Baseball commands.
That's sick. That is a sick title.
That's fucking make up job titles.
EBC.
Yeah.
Baseball Sultan.
Oh God. All right. We'll be back. When is that stupid series end? Sunday? What's today?
Sunday.
Thursday? Yeah. All
Yeah.
right. We'll be back on Sunday. Enjoy your weekend. Bye.
Buenas noches, amigos.